your fellow classmate, seen him online. Now you got him in person. Raphael. Okay, question one. Which group of legal instruments may legally be prepared by a licensed real estate broker? What'd you guys get? Yes, it's C as in Charlie. Because look at the others. We see deeds. The other one we see promissory notes. Can't prepare promissory notes. And then mortgages, promissory notes. Can't do that one either. So it's C as in Charlie. Yep. Number two, failure to comply with the statute of frauds. B would have to do with whether the contract is in writing. And remember, this is what the statute of frauds is all about. Contracts that are transferring ownership rights in real property, like deeds, mortgage, also option contracts, and contracts that are not to be completed within 1 year of the date created, like a lease agreement, listing agreement, or a buyer representation agreement for a term of longer than 1 year, must be in writing and signed to be enforceable in the court of law if something goes wrong. So that's confirming what we already know, and we'll see more about it. Number three, which contract is not governed or does not come under the jurisdiction of the statute of frauds? Correct answer is A, because remember, lease, listing, buyer agreements for a term of longer than 1 year. This one is not, so it doesn't have to be in writing and signed to be enforceable. Number four, a valid real estate sale contract, A, contains all of the essentials and is in writing. Think of the acronym COLIC. This will help you remember. Competent parties offer an acceptance, legal purpose, in writing and signed, statute of frauds requirement, and consideration. And there are two types of consideration. We'll see a question about that in just a moment. An adult contracting with a minor. You would think that they couldn't come up with a better example. That just sounds bad, right? Sounds like some Diddy stuff. Failure to meet which essential of a real estate contract would you guys get? Yeah, dealing with competent parties, individuals of sound mind and of legal age. What's of legal age to contract? 18. 6, canceling a daughter's property debt in a contract due to love and affection is an example of. In exchange for love and affection, that's good consideration. Number 7, a contract that is not in writing is called parole. Verbal, oral, all mean the same thing. Informal. Yes. Yes, I can agree with that. We know it's a great language. I know. It's so monotone and not sexy, unfortunately. When a contract has been formed, but an obligation remains to be performed by one or both parties, this is an example of executory. C as in Charlie. Which statement is false regarding counteroffers? It is D, because we know as you make counteroffers to one another, you change roles, positions within the negotiation process. If I give you an offer, I'm the offeror. You're the offeree. But if you turn around and submit a counteroffer to me, you're the offeror. I'm the offeree. An offer is not terminated by D, extension. D is in Delta. Number 11. If you want your share of commission to be ready for you on the closing table, what needs to happen? What's D as in Delta? Broker must give. Yes. So the title company, closing agent. 12. A woman gave an exclusive right of sale listing to a broker to find a buyer for her residential lot. While she was vacationing with her family, a buyer signed an offer to purchase the one's lot at the full price in terms of the listing agreement. Which statement is true? Correct answer is C as in Charlie. Because we know the exclusive right to sell listing does not give the broker the authority to accept the offer on the woman's behalf. But what legal document would? Power of attorney, POA, yes. Good job. And the person who you allow to represent you has a name. They're called an attorney in fact. Yes, good job. Did you form that study group? Okay, good. But it seems like nobody's participating. Is that what's going on, or what? One person? Okay, that's great. Yeah, I love that. A man and a woman enter into a written agreement. The man's gonna mow the woman's lawn because what happens every week during the mowing season, every third week during the winter. Yeah, okay. The reason why I put emphasis on that is because there's definitely an agenda in this textbook with these questions. Whenever they talk about somebody being in violation, who's always in violation? He is in violation. What? Never she is in violation. He loses his license due to fraud and all of this stuff. It's true. Read through these questions and you'll see this trend. It's very obvious what's going on. They're trying to change things. If you look at the cover of your textbook, Linda Crawford is the one who did all of that. Denise is trying to be a little bit more fair. So like when we talk about spouses dying to prove like what happens to the property if a spouse dies, it used to say the man dies always. The man gets cancer. The man breaks his back. Look at this question. Not only is he mowing the woman's lawn, right? That's saying something, but then he can't catch a break. He breaks his back, hands over his lawn maintenance contracts to a friend who assumes the responsibility of all the. Pay attention. You'll see what I'm not going crazy. I know I'm not. It's not a fluke. What term describes this situation? Is B as in Bravo assignment. 14, which applies to exclusive right of sale listings? All of the above. Yep. More than 70% of the time. 15, which disclosure concerning radon is required when purchasing or leasing real property in Florida? Simply put, shortest answer, D is, well, actually, second shortest answer. Disclosure statement in a contract explaining radon gas. 16, real estate sales associate must disclose to a prospective buyer that, yes, family room addition does not comply with local building codes. Normally, a sale contract involving real property contains a provision that in case of breach by the buyer, the earnest money deposit will be regarded as, yes, B as in Bravo, liquidated damages in this case to the seller. If we're talking about more damages being claimed beyond the deposit, now what are we referring to? Compensatory damages. This is how you're going to be tested. Good job. The most advantageous type of listing from the broker's point of view, C as in Charlie, the exclusive right to sell. I think that name gives it away. The brokerage is assured a commission regardless of who sells the property. 19, which statement is false concerning Florida's building code violation disclosure? It's A, that the seller is responsible for the code violation. No, they need to disclose. That's the requirement. But you can sell a property with a code violation. And when you're selling a house built prior to 1978 or renting, you have to provide disclosure associated with the hazards that come with having what? Lead-based paint and even asbestos. But it says what's not required before signing the sale contract. Yes, because you don't have to have the home inspected, but you do need to receive the proper disclosure, right? And that's what that last section of the unit was all about. Let's move on to Unit 12, which was an introduction to financing. We'll discuss more about financing within today's session, but let's continue. Page 283. Question 1. In a mortgage transaction in Florida, the legal evidence of personal debt is the B note, promissory note, mortgage note, must accompany all mortgages in Florida. 2, a type of seller financing in which the seller holds title, ownership rights until the buyer has repaid the debt is C, contract for deed. Yep. In title theory states, the mortgage clause that provides that transfer of title to the lender is defeated when all the terms of the agreement have been fulfilled is the C, defeasance clause. Is Florida a lien theory or a title theory state? Lien theory. Okay, just so we're clear on that. 4 is a little bit of math here. A home was purchased with a down payment of $50,000, loan of $200,000, 6% interest, 20 years, monthly payment does not matter because they're asking us for the LTV. LTV is very simple. We still have the handouts. You take the loan divided by the purchase price or value, and that gives you the LTV. We can plug it in here. Very simple. What's the loan? They tell us 200,000. No confusion there. And then you divide it by the purchase price, which is what? How do we know? Exactly. Loan, the part that you financed, plus what you contributed as a down payment, the 50,000, equal the total purchase price. That's 250. And when you do that division, you get 0.8, which is how much percent? Remember, this is a percentage, 80%. Does that match up? So the correct answer is D is in Delta. Any questions? Pretty simple, straightforward. 5, a borrower who is in default on a mortgage is allowed to prevent the lender from foreclosing on the property by paying the mortgagee, that's the lender, the delinquent principal and interest plus any expenses that they've accumulated in attempting to collect these payments. The right is called equity of redemption. Keyword redemption, you're redeeming yourself. You remember that. All the way up to the foreclosure sale date. 6, a lender declares all the unpaid balance due and payable as a result of default. The lender is exercising the correct answer is the acceleration clause. Good job. A is in alpha. What clause allows you to get back on track after acceleration has been initiated? It's one of the choices here. Right to reinstate clause. Yep. So if you defaulted and the lender is saying, okay, well, we have the acceleration clause, you got to pay me the remaining balance right now. The right to reinstate clause allows you to pay some type of penalty, fine, get back on track. The person who borrows money to help pay for the purchase of real property is called at various times the mortgagor, is the borrower who's always, and the mortgagee has the yes, you got it. When a vendee buys subject to the mortgage, the D, vendee, the buyer. Remember, the seller is the vendor, vendee is the buyer. So the vendee is not responsible because when you're purchasing subject to, that means the original borrower is still in place. You just have a contract that says, I'm going to make your mortgage loan payments for you. Sign the deed over to me, vacate the premises, and I'll find a tenant that's willing to pay more in rent than what I'm paying in those mortgage loan payments on your behalf every single month. 9, a couple just made their final mortgage payment on their home. What document must a lender file on their behalf? Satisfaction. Within how many days? 60 days. You can write that down next to it. Write it down next to it. 10, if the lender does not want the mortgage to be paid ahead of schedule, they will impose what clause? Prepayment penalty. Because they'd be losing interest. Yes. I know. 11, a buyer, to be fair, most traditional financing does not have a prepayment penalty. But if you go non-traditional, then usually they have some type of prepayment penalty because they want to squeeze as much as they can. 11, a buyer agrees to pay the purchase, agrees to purchase a property with an existing mortgage lien. In which situation is the new buyer the only party responsible for the debt? It's C, assumption with novation. Novation agreement, once signed by all parties, the buyer, seller, I would say the old borrower, new borrower, and the lender, substitutes the new borrower in place of the original. The LTV is 80%. A buyer wants to acquire a property with a purchase price of $116,000. Calculate the required down payment. This is quite simple because if the purchase price that we know, they tell us, is how much? $116,000. All you had to do was do some quick multiplication. We know the LTV is 80%. What is the LTV? Yeah, it's the loan. It's the percentage of the purchase price that the lender is willing to finance. So the loan is 80%. That's what LTV is. So that means the down payment, which they're asking us for, is how much percent? 20%. So all you had to do was multiply by 20% and you got your answer, $23,200. That's your down payment. Because a loan is 80. If the loan is 80%, you financed 80%, that means you had to come out of pocket for 20%. And when you do the math, it's B as in Bravo. Any questions? Okay. The primary purpose of an estoppel certificate is to C, verify the loan balance. Good job. 14, when a lis pendens is filed properly with the county clerk, it becomes a type of C, constructive notification, also known as legal notice. 15, a couple purchased their home for $125,000. They financed the purchase with an 80% conventional loan. The lender charged 2.5 points. What's the cost in dollars of those points? And on the handout, this is how I broke it down for you. At the top, it says lender's yield by points, right? But then at the bottom, the second calculation is cost in dollars by points. They're asking us for cost in dollars. This is the specific phrase that they will use so that way you can identify what formula to apply. And this math is very simple because for cost in dollars, to pay for those points up front rather than financing those points throughout the 30-year loan term, it's a 1-for-1 conversion. If you want to remove 1 point that they're imposing against you, you pay 1% of the loan. 2 points, 2% of the loan. Okay. And it's of the loan, not the what? Not the selling price. Now, they don't just come out and say purchase price is X amount of dollars. I'm sorry, the loan is X amount of dollars, but we need the loan. They give us a purchase price first. Let's go through the motions together. So the purchase price is how much? $125,000. But they finance with a how much percent conventional loan? Yeah. So if we can identify, that's the purchase price times 80%, which is your LTV, by the way, gives you how much as the actual loan? $100,000. So the loan is $100K. And you simply multiply that by the 2.5 points, but you have to convert the points. And it's a 1-for-1 conversion. So if it's 2.5 points, to remove them, it's 2.5%. You'll see it right here. 1 point is equal to 1%. So 2.5 points, 2.5% is what you multiply by. And when you do the math, take 100,000 multiply by 2.5%. What do you get? You get $100,000. I'm sorry. That was a test. That was a test. It was $2,500. Is that what you guys got? So it's C as in Charlie. Any questions here? Did I lose anybody in this explanation? You understand? Remember, it's on the loan, not the sales price. Just so we're clear on that. That's how points are calculated. At least cost in dollars of those points. 16, a borrower defaulted on a mortgage encumbering an apartment complex. Once the foreclosure proceedings were filed, the lender appealed to the courts to appoint a receiver to collect rent, the income that the property is producing, so the borrower doesn't try to pocket the cash while they're in default. 17, the rule of thumb used to convert discount points to annual percentage rates of interest is each point will increase the lender's yield, by approximately 1/8%. Isn't that on our handout? We said lender's yield, each point, 1 point is 1/8% increase to your true interest. Let's apply that rule of thumb to the next question. It says the lender charges 7% plus 3 points. What's the approximate yield? You see the term that they use here? Describe the calculation that you're going to use. So let's go ahead and plug it in. Your true interest is 7%, right? But let's start by converting the points, and then we'll add that to our true interest. It's 3 points multiplied by 0.125%. It's as a percent, rather. I already know what it is. It's 3 points, right? 3 points times 0.125, and that gives you, yes, percent. 0.375%. You can start with a fraction and then convert it either way. You're still going to get the same result. And then you add 7% was what you really qualify for, plus the points that you want to finance. And that's going to affect your total, which is 7.375. Is that one of our choices? Correct answer is B as in Bravo. Yep. Any questions here? All right, 19. This is calculating your total monthly mortgage payment. We're talking about your PITI, your PITI is how we describe it. Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. You have a loan with a principal and interest of $846.21. The lender requires an impound account for taxes and insurance. So what is your total monthly payment if your taxes are $2,840 and your insurance is $1,570? Very simple. You can add those two figures together. That's what you can start with. So $2,840 is your taxes for the year plus $1,570. That's going to give you $4,410, or no, $4,410, right? I just missed a number, right? But we need monthly, so you simply divide by what? 12. And when you hit the equal sign, this is what you pay in just taxes and insurance per month. But you add that to your existing principal and interest payment, monthly payment. We add $846.21, and that gives us our answer. Should have been very simple. Any questions about this? Those D as in Delta. And I can just explain 20 to you. We don't actually have to work out the math. It's basic subtraction. If the property value is $350 and you borrowed against it for $300, what's left over? What's your equity? $50,000. Any questions? All right. Let's jump into our session for today. Today is going to be units 13, which is the longest unit in the textbook. Don't be scared. Longest unit in the textbook. And what I did was, rather than pairing it with unit 14, which is all math, imagine we go through the longest unit in the textbook and I say, wait a second, we're not done yet. Let's now do the majority of the math that you're going to see on your exams. Yikes. I don't want you guys to hate me. So I paired the longest unit in the textbook with the shortest unit in the textbook, which is unit 15. It takes me about 5 minutes to cover, literally. All right. Don't try to time me. But we're going to cover unit 13 first. Sound good? And if you feel comfortable at the end of our session, I'll try to throw in some other units. And we'll see how the rest of this week looks. Because who has kids? You got kids? Okay. And who likes to take their kids trick-or-treating? Okay. So you would appreciate being there for them, right? Getting her up your, dressed up in your cute costumes and all that stuff. So I'm going to try to get you there. And if we can't squeeze in what we need to squeeze in, then what we'll do is I'll give you guys off on Thursday, and then we'll just finish class on Friday. Okay? Did you plan a vacation in the middle of class? I hope not. Anniversary. It's okay. But you're not taking off on us, right? Isn't it your birthday coming up or around your birthday? So you got your birthday, you got your anniversary, you got real estate class. This is, yeah, awesome.
I'll do whatever I need.
Well, we need you. So we'll see how it looks, okay? I can't make any promises. But unit 13 and 15 at least today. And we'll see if we can work on the beyond part. So unit 13, I'll streamline it. I'll make it simple for you guys, even though it's the longest unit. As far as just content, I'm going to stick to the most important parts, what you need to know for exam purposes. And we discuss a lot of this information already, because yesterday was some foreshadowing to what we see in this unit. Yesterday was the introduction of financing. This is a deeper dive into financing. Understanding different loan programs that exist, because you're going to be working with buyers. They need financing, a lot of them, and you have to know what programs are available, what best fits their needs based on their qualifications, how to determine if they're qualified for financing options that exist. All of that is relevant. So we're going to see, look at all the wonderful key terms we're going to encounter. If you're not familiar with the process for qualifying for a loan, this is how it typically works. You can just follow along. You don't have to highlight anything. You start, or your buyers will start by submitting the loan what? Yeah. Next step is to evaluate their what? And their history, payment history. Following that is DTI. One of us mentioned this, debt to income ratio. Do you remember this? making sure they have enough income to satisfy the debt for that property that they're interested in acquiring, right? We'll see that in this unit, and I'll show you the calculation. It's quite interesting. I mentioned we would see it later on. It's going to be in this unit. Qualifying the property if needed for the category of loan. Pre-approval is what you need before you can go shopping, right? You don't want to waste your time. You're going to deal with buyers. They're going to inquire with you, and they're going to try to pick your brain on some things, and they're going to try to force you to take them to see various properties without having a pre-approval letter in hand. And you know that they need financing. So what are we doing here? Let's not work backwards. Let's do things the right way. Let's put our best foot forward. We need that letter before we go shopping. I'll show you one. How about that? I'll show you one that you found on Zillow that you absolutely love. But after that, we need the pre-approval. Deal? Right? Something like that. Check this. On line 31, mortgage loans can be grouped into two general categories. What is it? Oh, yeah. Conventional loans, just so you have a better understanding, carry no government guarantee. So they're not backed by the government or government insurance. That means the lender assumes the full risk in the event that the borrower what? Defaults. We'll come back to that. We'll talk about all the features pertaining to conventional loans. Then we'll talk about non-conventional loans, which are the opposite. If conventional are not backed by the government, that means non-conventional are backed by the government. And there are two in particular that we're going to discuss. FHA insured, VA guaranteed. We'll see what that means in a moment. But let's start with conventional mortgage loan features. The whole purpose of giving you a loan is so the lender can make what off of you? And as much money as they can make up front. Do you remember that? We talked about that scandal. Anyhow, assumption. You'll find this interesting. When it comes to fixed rate conventional loans, they typically include a what clause? Do you remember the due on sale clause? The debt to lend. You wrote this down. Debt to the lender is due on sale. That means if you try to transfer ownership to somebody, whether you sell it or give it away, ownership transfers trigger the due on sale clause, and the lender says, well, pay me the remaining balance. So fixed rate conventional loans typically have that included, which would prevent another from doing what? You wrote this down as well yesterday, next to the due on sale clause. Unless we're talking about, check this out, last sentence, adjustable rate conventional loans, which we'll come back to. Those are assumable. Interesting. We'll see those in just a moment. Good news is you can pay off as early as you like. No prepayment penalty. Here is where most people struggle with getting conventional financing. The conventional loan typically requires a higher down payment, a higher level of income, higher credit score. Your qualifications have to be stronger to obtain conventional financing. Why? Because of what we discussed just a moment ago. They're not backed by the government. The lender assumes the full risk in the event of you defaulting. So they want to make sure you're top tier qualified, right? If they're going to give you financing. But it's a double-edged sword. When you submit an offer, your offer looks stronger when you're bringing conventional financing to the table versus somebody that's pre-qualified and is bringing FHA financing to the table. Because FHA loans, that's a government-backed program. It's much easier to qualify for an FHA loan. So the stigma is that, oh, this person's not as qualified. That's why they went with FHA versus conventional. It's going to be more of a headache dealing with this type of loan. There's more regulations. Conventional is less regulated because there's no government involved. Do you understand this? That's the stigma that these loans come with. And you should know that going into the business. Anyhow, down payment. I've seen conventional loans with down payments as low as 5%. And sometimes with some help from the lender, will even contribute money towards your down payment where you only have to come up with 3%, but typically the lowest is about 5%. However, if you can't come up with at least how much percent is a down payment? 20%. You are viewed as more risky, and the lender would make you pay PMI, private mortgage insurance, to protect the bank just in case you default, because you're viewed as more risky. You can't come up with at least 20% of your own money towards buying this property. What are we doing here? Pay for the PMI. Does that make sense? I'm just going to try to inject a little bit of logic into it. Loan to value ratio. So typically for conventional loans, because a lender wants you to contribute at least 20% as a down payment, what LTV would we normally see? If it's 20% down payment, how much percent is financed? That's an 80% LTV. Do you see that in this paragraph? We already know what LTV is. We don't need to go through the math once again, but anyhow, just wanted to share that with you. So if the lender gives you a higher LTV, 90% LTV, that means you only contributed 10% as a down payment. You're viewed as more risky, and they want you to pay what? PMI, private mortgage insurance. I'm just repeating it again so you can hear it. Qualifying for a conventional loan. I will come back to this. These are debt to income ratios that I will come back to. I even made a handout for you guys. I'll print it and make sure you guys have it. We'll see it in just a moment. But you will be tested on this. It's on page 299. Lock that in. Okay. Go to page 300. We see common types of mortgages. Let's go through what we have here on line 7. Have you heard of an amortized mortgage? Amortize. This is typically how your repayment of the debt is structured. Amortization of a loan is how it works. Let me explain it to you. The word amortization, just the terminology, means to systematically kill or deaden. And that's what you're doing with each monthly mortgage loan payment. We know that our mortgage loan payment consists of at least 2 parts. What are these 2 parts we talked about yesterday? We see it again in front of us. Principal and what? Once again, review. Principal is a portion of your payment that you make every single month that goes towards killing the debt. Interest is the portion that kills you. You get it? I know you like that one. Now, in the beginning of the loan term, the majority of your payment goes towards what? Principal or interest? Exactly. Interest in the bank's pocket and a lesser portion towards principal. But they change places over time, systematically killing or deadening. When you close on the loan, they're going to give you an amortization table. They're going to give you a thick packet. And it breaks down. Imagine if you had a 30-year mortgage loan. They'll show you over the next 30 years, month by month, how much you're paying towards principal and interest. So if you're like 10 years in, month number 3, then you can see that on the packet that they provide to you. It's a required disclosure anyhow. Let's see an example of this on the next page. You'll see a $200,000 mortgage, 4% interest, 30-year, and it's a level payment plan mortgage. What does level payment plan mortgage mean? I think you'll even see it on the previous page. Level payment plan. Yeah, right here. It means, look, fixed rate amortized mortgages are sometimes referred to as level payment plan. That means your monthly mortgage loan payment does not change. In this example, look, we see the first 6 months. Your payment is the same, right? $954.83. PI is principal and what? Interest. Look how much month number 1 out of that payment is going in the bank's pocket. And less than $300 towards actually killing the debt of $200, and you subtract it, and that's your balance. And then you repeat the steps over and over and over and over again every single month. This is the math behind it. So look, from month number 1 to month number 2, look at the change. Less than $1 is going in the bank's pocket. In month number 2, that means less than $1 more is going towards killing your $200,000 debt. Wow. Congratulations. You're really making strides in killing the debt. It's a painstaking process. You don't really start killing your debt until the end of the loan term. Look at the last 6 months and look at the change. You see the change? The greater portion of your payment towards killing the debt. Now, adjustable rate mortgage. We also refer to these as an ARM. The reason why? It's going to cost you an arm and maybe even a flipping leg, right? You got it. So it's where your interest rate can change. But usually what they do is it says they lock you in typically for the first 3 to 10 years. And then after that, the agreement is they're going to adjust it. Hence the name, adjustable rate mortgage. All these terms are negotiable. And also it depends on the program that they're offering. They might say, hey, first 5 years are fixed. And then after that, it's adjusted. But what do they tie your rate to? What are they adjusting it based off of? Not quite. Nope. It's based on Treasury bonds, U.S. Treasury securities. You'll see it here on page 302. Because your interest rate in an ARM consists of these two parts. Look, they just add them together, index plus margin. So what is index? That's the market rate that they tie your rate to. Many indexes are tied to U.S. Treasury securities. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it's government stock. Anybody can invest in the U.S. economy through Treasury bonds, T-bills. And depending on the rate of maybe the 10-year security, Treasury bond will dictate what you pay. So if it's adjusted, it does adjust the return. If you invest with the U.S. economy and you buy these bonds, they give you a rate of return because the government is using the money that you invest with them to further our agenda, hopefully not go to war, but fix our economy, pay off debt, whatever the case may be. You understand what I'm saying? And then they give you a return based on when you acquired, but that rate of return changes over time. So that's what they adjust your rate to, based on the 10-year bond typically, but they don't mention the amount of years. And margin, also known as spread, represents the lender's cost of doing business plus their profit and remains constant throughout the loan term because you want to make sure that your profit is consistent, right? And that's at least locked in. But lenders, the reason why they like these is because they don't want to lose out on money they could be making if they lend to somebody when rates are higher. If rates are higher, then they can charge people essentially more money for giving them the loan over the loan term, right? They're making more off of that borrower. So imagine with people that lock in their rate at 2-3% for their house, congratulations. They're losing, it's fixed over the next however many years you have, 30 years. But with an ARM, it gives them ability to make money as the market changes, right? And not lose out on those opportunities when interest rates are a lot higher. Anyhow, but it makes the borrower suffer. Why would somebody take advantage of an ARM versus a fixed rate? It's when rates are high as a fixed rate, like 7% right now. An ARM might look more attractive because the introductory rate, they call it a teaser rate, to tease you, to lure you in, is a lot less. So if fixed rates are at 7%, they advertise ARMs at like 4%. You're like, oh my gosh, that's a lot better. I'll save a whole lot of money in interest. But with this agreement that it's going to be adjusted over the years. So it's not for somebody that needs a 30-year loan. This is somebody who just needs short-term financing. And maybe they say, hey, with the ARM, it's 4% for the first 5 years. You're locked in. After that, it's adjusted. And you're thinking, okay, in 5 years, I'll pay it off, right? Or in 5 years, at least I lock in that 4% right now for the next 5 years. And then maybe after 5 years, rates go down and I can refinance into a fixed rate. You understand? I'm just trying to give you a better understanding of how it works and why somebody might take advantage of it, because it seems like, why would somebody do that? But anyhow, government insured FHA program. Now let's talk about non-conventional loans, which are loans that what? Look, are backed by the what? Yep. And it says FHA insured. That's the full title. Why are they insured? We'll talk about that in just a moment. As I mentioned to you, these are easier to qualify for because it's backed by the government and it's a HUD-backed program. Do you remember HUD? The Department of Housing and Urban Development. What's HUD's philosophy? Exactly. So they offer programs that make it easier for you to become a homeowner, the FHA home loan program. And you'll see it through the features, how it's easier to qualify for. Interest rate is typically less, more competitive than conventional. They still can charge you points, like what we talked about in Unit 12. No due on sale clause. You see that? Does not have a due on sale clause. So that means they could be assumed by another borrower. Down payment as low as what percent? Yep, there you go. So down payment less as well. And I don't know if you've heard of this. Have you heard of down payment assistance? Didn't we talk about this previously? Where the government allocates a certain amount of money per state and per county that you can use towards the purchase of your primary residence. The down payment assistance program, if it gets replenished, will give you up to 3.5% towards the purchase of your property. Doesn't that cover the 3.5% minimum down payment? There's a reason why, if you understand. So you can essentially, with the FHA and pair it with the first-time homebuyer program, acquire a residential property. Remember I said residential, with no money down. And closing costs, another feature, which it doesn't really describe well in here, closing costs, which you're thinking I have to come out of pocket with, could be financed over the 30-year loan as well. So you can truly buy your primary residence with no money down. Isn't that interesting? It's pretty cool, right? Unless, because of the rule changes, you have a buyer's agent and you might have to pay them some commission, right? We talked about that, or Ryan talked about it. But anyhow, residential, I put emphasis. Remember I said residential. Residential is how many units? 4 units or less. So your primary residence, residential, could be 4 units or less. So wait a second, Michael, you're telling me I can buy like a quadruplex, live in one of the units, rent out the other 3? Yes. And a lot of people house hack, home hack to do that. And actually, if you find one of those and get FHA financing and so forth, not only could you potentially buy it with no money down, finance closing costs, but the 3 other units, if they're occupied and producing rental income, will help you qualify for that loan. Because now that money it's producing will be your income when you buy it, right? And that's the assumption that the lender takes. Does that help you out? Okay. There's another, the most common FHA home loan program is FHA 203B. Not that you need to know that, but there is another classification of FHA financing. It's called 203K. If you look that up, FHA 203K. And this is when you buy a house that you are going to renovate as your primary residence. So you can find the worst house in the best neighborhood and get FHA financing for it, the house that nobody wants, and you can finance with the FHA home loan program 203K renovations. You can finance renovations, doesn't have to come out of pocket. 3.5% down, plus down payment, all those things that we just got done talking about. So there's a lot of favorable terms depending on these programs, but you have to be aware that these programs even exist. So that's the issue that people run into. They're like, I don't know it exists, and I don't know the right questions to ask to find out what's available. Well, now I'm trying to share with you the right questions to ask. Yes.
You're supposed to live in the house before they can actually start making money in the house, right? Like renting in the house.
If it's a quadruplex, as long as you're living in one of the units, you can rent out the other 3 right away. That's an exception. If it's a single family house, just your family living in it, you have to, if it's just FHA financing, you have to live in it for at least 1 year. I think they even reduced it to at least 6 months before you can start renting it out. So you can take advantage of all those wonderful terms to get the loan. If you get an investor loan, for instance, if you get a loan to finance the purchase of investment property, all the terms are not favorable for you. It's the investor's rate of interest, which is higher than if you were trying to get an interest rate to finance the purchase of your own house. So you can get this loan to purchase it as if it's your primary, all those favorable terms and rate, and then after 6 months, a year, turn it into a rental. And then you do FHA financing all over again and get the next house. Unless you get down payment assistance, HUD says you have to live in the property for at least 5 years before you can turn it into a rental. Otherwise, you have to pay it back. Just giving you some insight. It's not in our textbook. I'm just sharing that with you. It's a great question. Loan limit. So what maximum FHA loan can I qualify for? It says it right here. It varies significantly depending on average cost of housing in different regions of our country. So every county has their own FHA loan limit. I don't know what it is for Orange County, but because it changes. And I haven't looked recently, but we can look. Let's go on a quick field trip. Let's say maximum FHA loan for Orange County, Florida. I think I spelled it right. That's crazy. That's crazy. That is, wow. I don't think it's this. I think it's, can you see it now? Yeah. I think it's a 766, but that is significantly more than what it once was. Last time I checked, it was like 450,000. Wow. So higher threshold. Anyhow, with 3.5% down. And potentially that could be covered as well. Up to a certain limit for the down payment assistance. Anyhow, I think it's up to 10,000, something like that. I'd have to look it up. Anyhow, loan insurance premium. Do you remember earlier we talked about the conventional loan and how if you were unable to come up with how much percent is the down payment? 20%. They charge you what? PMI. But for FHA loans, there's not an option. You have to pay insurance, mortgage insurance. They call it something different for FHA financing. It's called MIP. And you actually have to pay for 2 separate premiums. Okay, see right here. Not only the UFMIP, upfront mortgage insurance premium, but you also have to pay, look what it says, in addition, you also have to pay an annual MIP. But don't worry, it can be divided into 12 easy payments for you. It's going to cost you significantly more every single month. It's just, it protects the bank just in case you what? Default. So it's required insurance. Now the question I get is, all right, does it eventually fall off? No, not for FHA. It's throughout the entire loan term. For conventional, however, if I can tell you how it differs, if you start with PMI for conventional, after 2 years, you can request to remove it. But you have to have at least 21% equity in your home for them to drop it. So they'll do an appraisal and they'll see if it's increased in value and you have at least, how much do you owe? How much is it worth? Do you have at least 21%? Okay, now we'll remove it. They don't make it easy because they love receiving the insurance payments from you every single month after 2 years of on-time payments, good behavior. If you are late with your payments, other than that, no. If you request it, they don't make it easy though. And I can tell you a story about my primary residence that I owned several years ago, and I requested it, and they made me pay. First of all, they said you have to send us a letter by mail. I said, what are we talking about here? I mean, it's not like it was in the year 2000. Okay, let me send you an email officially requesting. No, you got to send us a letter. Okay, I played their game, sent them a letter. They said, okay, now we need to schedule the appraisal. And it took a long time. Imagine you send a letter, they got to process it, they got to respond to you. That takes, a week or two. Meanwhile, every month, I'm still making these flipping payments, $400 extra a month. So they stretch it out. They know what they're doing, right? And then they said, we're going to schedule the appraisal. It's going to be $450 or something like that. It's not bad at the time. So I was like, okay, I'll give you my credit card. No, you got to mail us a check with a letter identifying the loan number and and what the money is for and all that stuff. BS. We know what's going on here, right? They're just delaying. So let's see how many months we can squeeze this payment out of them. And then I'm like, what's going on? Weeks go by, and I'm like, what's the deal? Say, oh yeah, we can't find an appraiser to take the assignment because it's a custom house. So we finally found somebody. It's going to cost you $200 more. I said, oh my God, man. All right, whatever. I'll pay it. Here's my credit card. No. Game. So finally submit it. I got the appraisal back. I'm a broker. I've been doing this a long time. I know what my property's worth. I know what comparables are, recent sales in the surrounding area. I know my property has way like 35%, 40% equity in it. So I'm thinking I got that cushion. I'm good. There's no way that I'm going to have a deficit. They come back, they say the appraisal didn't give you at least 21% equity. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So they said, either give us $12,000 or we're just, we'll drop it off. Like this, it's going to be dead, right? We'll close the file essentially. And they say you have by this time to respond. So I thought about it for like a week and I'm like, what is it going to hurt? It's like, I'm paying off my debt. So the sooner I pay off the debt, the better. It's not like I'm losing that money. I'll eventually get it back if I sell it, whatever. So I pay them the 12 grand. I had to mail them a check. Okay. And then they sent me a response. Well, I was like, a week goes by. I'm like, what's going on? They finally respond to me. They say, oh yeah, so based on you not responding, we're going to deny your request. And I'm like, wait a second. I called them up. I was furious. I was like, first of all, I responded within the time. Luckily, I keep records of everything. And I had everything time stamped, everything. And I kept thorough records because I knew from the beginning when they started that BS, I'm like, they're going to try something with me. So I had everything. I submitted it. And I said, hey, listen, that's a lie. I submitted it by the time you asked, met the deadline. Here you go. And finally, they removed it. But meanwhile, I paid 3 months worth of interest, which is like $1,200 or whatever. So it's just a game. They play a game with you. So to answer your long way to answer a question, but yes. What lender was it? It was a lender.
Because I'm like, the government does stuff all the time, but I'm surprised the lender would be so far in the past.
I don't want to talk about it anymore. Now I'm upset. It's okay. FHA loans, they require an appraisal contingency, which means if the property doesn't appraise to the amount that you're trying to purchase it for, then the seller has to be willing to come down. And if they're not willing to come down, you can back out with no penalty, get your deposit back. But they're trying to remove that. That's a new feature. So it's coming through the pipeline. Insurance commitment. Oh, we're not going to talk about that. All right, let's talk about VA loans. We're making good time and then we'll take a break. Does that sound all right? It's about VA loans. We'll take a break. VA loans are for who? Yeah, and even active military personnel. And they're backed by the government. It's a non-conventional loan, so they're backed. But they're partially guaranteed by the government. That's why it says VA Loan Guarantee Program. So let's talk about it. Who qualifies? Well, veterans, unremarried surviving spouses of veterans. That's interesting. Unremarried. That means if your spouse passes away on active duty with the U.S. military, you lose your benefits if you get remarried. Boyfriend, girlfriend, I guess. I don't know. It's based on how long you serve for our country. I'm not going to get into that. You're not going to be tested on it. Just like FHA loans, you have to be a VA approved lender to offer the program. So not just anybody can offer this financing. FHA, VA, you have to be an approved lender. And you can do a quick search on their website and find out who the local FHA, most lenders are. But anyhow, loan guarantee. So VA loans are guaranteed by the government. What does that mean? VA establishes loan guarantee limits referred to as a VA loan guarantee or a maximum entitlement. And it's the maximum the government guarantees a lender will be paid if the borrower what? Defaults. That's what it means. So it's like insurance, but they call it a guarantee. And it's a partial guarantee. Now, something interesting. It says in the event that the borrower defaults, but VA loans have the lowest default rate out of any type of loan. And it kind of makes sense, right? For somebody that serves in the military, the mentality that you have to serve in the military, that always fight, never give up mentality. And they also receive tons of benefits, housing expense benefits as well. You got it. And yes, we'll talk about that. Can you reuse your entitlement? Yes, exactly. So you can get multiple VA loans. And loan limit is based on your qualifications. So you can get $1 million VA loan if you qualify for it. And it says without a down payment. It says removal of the loan limit does not mean the veterans have unlimited borrowing power without a down payment. So there are some limitations to it, but no down payment, which is interesting. It says down payments still apply for veterans. You can read through this later on tonight. I'm not going to get into it. Anyhow, they can charge you an origination fee, but no more than 1%. We talked about loan origination fees, right? And points. The funding fee. This is interesting. Check this out on line 26. It says, VA loans do not require what? Mortgage insurance. But they charge you a funding fee. Okay, Michael, what's a funding fee? It's to help the government offset the cost of foreclosures. What does that sound like? Sounds like mortgage insurance. But oh no, we don't charge mortgage insurance. We just charge this thing called a funding fee, which is damn near the same thing. Just disguise it, put a different bow on it. And you'll see right here, it says, if you have a service-connected disability, then they waive the funding fee, which is nice. I want you to highlight, no, you don't necessarily need to highlight this because I made a handout for you guys with these qualifying ratios, which I'm going to come back to. Unlike FHA loans, where you can finance closing costs, VA loans, you have to pay for closing costs outside of the loan. Can't finance. Assumption. VA loans are assumable, even by what? Line 34. In parentheses. Even by non-veterans. So you can get a VA loan with all those wonderful benefits, and then I can assume it. So find somebody in the military willing to play ball. On page 308, you could pay off as early as you like. I want you to highlight this chart, the difference between FHA and VA loans. And actually, just give me one more minute. Let's talk about purpose-specific mortgage products. Biweekly is where you pay every other week instead of every month. What's the benefit? Well, you're actually, look, instead of 24 half payments, you're making 13 full month payments instead of 12, which means you're making one additional payment. You're going to save considerable interest and pay off your debt sooner. If they have this product available, you have to ask for it. They don't actively advertise these products. You just have to know about it. Partially amortized. You know what amortization means, right? An amortized loan. Your monthly mortgage payment consists of two parts, principal and interest. You start off with higher interest, lesser principal. They change places over time. That's amortization. So it's partially. It's also referred to as a balloon mortgage. Do you see it here on line 4? Have you heard of this? I offer these. I've taken advantage of them as an investor. This is creative financing, in my opinion. So it's where I go to the seller and I want them to be my lender. Seller financing. You remember that? Purchase money mortgage. But the stipulation is the agreement might be structured like this. The payments I make to you as my lender, as the seller of the property, it's going to be amortized, interest and principal. They change places over time. But maybe the seller doesn't want to wait 30 years to get repaid all the debt. So they'll have something called a balloon payment once we reach a loan maturity date that's all negotiated. So they say, hey, listen, I'll stretch the loan over 30 years, so your monthly mortgage payment is low, but at year number 5, you have to pay me the remaining balance or refinance with some other lender. Get traditional financing. So they gave me 5 years to get my financial situation in order and get traditional financing. 5 years to refinance. Seller financing is also known as a purchase what? Money mortgage. Any questions about that? We see it officially here, even though we took a note of it in a previous unit. Have you heard of a home equity loan? Home equity loan is where somebody has significant equity in their property. Maybe you have $100,000 worth of equity and you want to pull out this money in a lump sum. Most lenders will give maximum 80% LTV. Do you understand what that means? So that means if you have $100,000, what's 80%? $80,000. They'll give you $80,000 out of that $100,000 in equity. And you can use the money for whatever you like. Start a new business, purchase another property, whatever the case may be. They don't regulate that. However, you're creating a second debt against the property, and eventually you have to pay it back plus interest. You can do a HELOC as an alternative, home equity line of credit, where you could pull out a large lump sum, but most people that do HELOCs, it's like a credit card for the equity in your property. So you have a credit limit, a spending limit, and you can spend, $1,000, pay it back, $2,000, pay it back. You can tap into that equity. It's a line of credit. A home equity conversion mortgage, also known as a reverse mortgage or a HECM. You'll see in parentheses, HECM. And this is designed for people over the age of what? What might it sound like when an old person coughs? Exactly. It might sound like HECM. It will help you remember. So this is interesting with the HECM. There's a lot of benefits. This is a HUD-backed program, guys. So you know HUD. If you're over the age of 62 and you have significant equity in your property, or maybe your property is completely paid off, you might take advantage of this. And you could receive a large lump sum, but most people that take advantage of this reverse mortgage, it's so they can pull out a little bit of their equity every single month. And something interesting about it, it does not require what? Repayment, as long as you live in the property, keyword live. So you can slowly pull out the equity every single month. As long as you live, you don't have to repay it back. But eventually, if you pass away, your legal heirs inherit it. They might have to pay off the debt that you created against the property. Make sense? Okay, but here's the thing. If you're over the age of 62, you might be retired. You might be receiving government assistance income, which is called what? SSI. Have you heard of SSI? You might be on Medicare as well. But you only receive those benefits if you're under an income threshold. If you make too much money, the government says you don't need our help, right? So if you just do a traditional home equity loan and you pull out all your equity in one large lump sum, that's going to show up as an income and it's going to wipe out your benefits. So this is the alternative. You can pull out your income little by little every single month, keep you below the income threshold, and still slowly pull out your equity that you can use for bills, vacation, whatever the case may be. And a package mortgage would be what you're looking for if you're trying to get a loan to purchase both real and personal property. Like Raphael, we talked about before class started, we talked about the restaurant business. If you want to buy a restaurant with all the equipment inside, this is what you would look for. Because you're financing not just the real estate, but also the personal property inside. All under one loan. Any questions here? All right, let's take a break. I want you guys to be back at 6:20. No, 6:15. 6:15. 10 minutes. Stretch out, grab a snack, do what you got to do. See you guys in just a moment.
Hi, my name is Crystal Rivera, and I'm a realtor with Live Realty at Nona. I decided to be a real estate agent for my love of helping others. thinking about helping them with their first home, with their first apartment, with their first investment property. Flipping homes is what started me in the business. My husband is into flipping homes. So I went from nursing, which I'm still currently doing, but now going into real estate. Decided to use Cameron Academy because of my nursing schedule and how their schedule works well with my schedule. Did not expect to be prepared as I was. Michael was amazing. He prepared me in 2 weeks to take the test, literally 5 days after I completed the class. And 3 days after that, I was already signed with Live Realty. And here we are 5 weeks later, and I have my first listing. So definitely prepared me well for the real estate industry and just all that's to come. I'm excited, and I wish everybody luck.
Hey, my name's Jonathan Gibson. I am from Orlando, Florida. I had started my career in real estate based on wanting to... I started out my journey in real estate with Cameron Academy because I read a lot of online reviews, and there were exceptional reviews about Cameron. When I got here, I wasn't disappointed at all. I realized Michael was the best teacher, and he helped me learn everything I needed to know about real estate. And he's a very good instructor. He's thorough. He tells everything. He's one of the better professors. He's good at explaining stuff, helping you get through this and making it easy for everything. And I wanted to do real estate because I read some books and I bought homes, and I wanted to start renting out my property. And I know we had, based on my research online from Google and everything, I knew I had to do a school for Florida and do the 63-hour course. And I looked it up, came to Cameron Academy. It's been the best thing ever. He's helped us with connections. He's brought in different realtors and brokers, plus find work after the academy. So if you're wanting to learn anything about real estate, I would definitely recommend Cameron Academy.
Hi, my name is Tamara Fletcher, and I have experience in education. I've worked in education for over 17 years, but I always wanted to get into real estate. I wanted to get into real estate because I love a couple of things. I love people, I love making money, and I love being able to sell homes, or at least the potential of selling homes. I love real estate. That's what brought me to Cameron Academy. Cameron Academy has done so much for me. I have learned so much from Michael. The information that I've gained here has made me feel so prepared for the state exam as well as the exam at the end of the course. I can't go on enough about how enthusiastic Michael was during the whole process of learning, and how that really made a difference in the way that I learn. Being able to be here in person and take the in-person classes is what has really made it all the difference in the world. Michael is a great instructor. I saw great reviews about him and his instruction here at Cameron Academy, and I am really happy to say that all of those positive reviews are true, 1,000%. It's made a world of difference for me, and if I could do it again, I would.
My name is Gabriel Minyarji. I've been in the restaurant industry for the past 25 years, now getting the residential investment opportunity. I found Cameron Academy to be very helpful in my new endeavor. Michael Cameron has been very, very helpful, knowledgeable, provided very new and efficient information to help me endeavor my career. I'm very, very pleased and satisfied that I found Cameron Academy and the knowledge that I gained from them, and for all my future endeavors. I highly, highly, highly recommend them. I definitely give them a 5-star plus.
My name is Dennis Duane. I came to the Cameron Academy. My mentor, he also he told me go directly to Cameron Academy. They are very, very good, and that's how he got his license. And he advised me to go to that school. And when I came, so far, it was the best decision that I made. The instructor Michael was very, very good. He's very good, and it would benefit me. Very knowledgeable. I want to say thank you to him. And I think I will pass because of him. I will pass both school exam and the state exam. So it was the best decision that I made. Michael was very good, and I want to say thank you to him. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Samuel Ramirez. I'm an electrician. I got into real estate to get into my own deals and to see if I can sell some real estate for commission on the sides. Cameron Academy taught me a lot of things. It taught me different things that I didn't know about real estate. It cleared up some misconceptions that I had. Michael was a great teacher. He taught me a lot about real estate that I didn't know, and it just opened my eyes a lot more and made me just very motivated to get into this. And I think anyone should go to Cameron Academy.
Mi nombre es Rolly Peralta y acabo de terminar las clases aquí en la Academia Cameron con el profesor Michael. He aprendido mucho y estoy muy agradecido con Michael por todo lo que me ha enseñado. Yo quiero ser un real estate agent para seguir invirtiendo en el futuro y también ayudar a algunas familias a adquirir sus sueños. Estoy muy agradecido con Michael y invito a todas las personas a venir a esta academia.
大家好，我叫 Rudy 我很开心能够跟 Michael 上学，因为他在real estate 这方面学到了给我很多知识，我也很开心能够选到他，因为不是每个人都可以教你，他能够教你的东西，他有很多的实力，有很多的经验，而且很风趣，所以对于我来讲是一件非常幸运的事情。那我个人想做房地产投资，所以我必须要有最专业的知识去帮助我自己。很幸运的能够选到 Michael， 所以我希望大家以后能够给他一个机会去跟他做投资，不会让你丢钱，这个很重要。所以祝你们好运，希望能以后见到你们，谢谢，拜拜。
afford that. And we'll go through this calculation in just a moment. And then we'll also see the TOR, total obligations ratio, used to calculate the borrower's ability to pay all the monthly debts, not just for the house that they want to purchase. So we'll see both, and we'll see if it's appropriate or not. Let's go through the motions. The calculation is very simple. You just take the monthly housing debt for that property that you want to purchase and divide it by your income. That's it. So we can make it up just to see how it works. You take your monthly housing expense. That includes, look in parentheses, PITI. You know what PITI stands for, right? Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And divide it by your what? PMI. Private mortgage insurance. If you're unable to come up with at least how much percent down? Yeah. Oh, you got it? Okay. Well, you got extra. Exactly. You divide it by, then you divide it by your monthly gross income. Let's make it up. Let's see how it works. Throw in some numbers and show you what that means. For that property that you're interested in acquiring, PITI and PMI, if you're responsible for it, let's say is $2,400. And your monthly income before expenses and so forth is $8,000. Easy math. Go ahead and do the calculation right now. Go ahead and take 2,400 and divide it by 8,000. And yes, that's what I got as well. I got 0.3, which is how much as a percent? This is a ratio, percentage. It's 30%, guys. But what does that 30% mean? Well, before I show you how it affects whether or not you're qualified or not, it means that your debt is 30% of your income. This is 30% of your income. So do you qualify? Well, let's take a look. And that's why you need to know what's on this chart. You have to remember the numbers on this chart. But I put it all in one place so that way it's easy. It says the borrower must be below the following ratio thresholds to be pre-qualified. So look under the column that says HER, which is what we just calculated, housing expense ratio, we're at 30%. And for conventional, they say you have to be below what percent? 28. So are we considered to be pre-qualified for conventional? No, we're above. It says our debt must be below 28%, at 28% or less to be pre-qualified for conventional. We don't meet that qualification standard. But for FHA, remember, it's easier to qualify. Are you below 31%? Yes. So for FHA, the debt ceiling could be higher. You're pre-qualified for that. And VA, they don't look at this calculation. So the next calculation, TOR, which is just as important, if not more, in my opinion, takes into account all of your debts that you're responsible for within the month, not just for that house you want to buy, the monthly mortgage loan payment. People have other debts, naturally. So you take your total monthly obligations, your PITI, PMI, and long-term obligations. We're talking about whatever appears on your credit report. What debts appear on your credit report? Car loans, credit cards, educational loans, medical bills. Okay, yeah, exactly. Let's say it's more, 3,200 for the house that you want to purchase and your other debts combined, 3,200. And your monthly gross income is still the same, 8,000. And let's do the math. Go ahead and take 3,200 divided by 8,000. Tell me what you get as your total obligations ratio. Yes, you got 0.4. I would agree with that. Yes, it's 0.4, which is 40%. Now let's go back to that chart. So now all your debts in the month make up 40% of your income. For FHA, I'm sorry, for conventional, are you below 36%? For the total obligations ratio, no. So once again, you're not considered to be pre-qualified for conventional. For FHA, are you below 43%? Yes. And if they are of the military, are you below 41%? Yeah. So you can come up with a game plan. The whole point of this is you're working with a buyer, right, that needs to borrow money. And before they hold their credit and the lender finds out that they're not qualified for certain types of financing programs, you can do this calculation with them and come up with a game plan is what I'm saying. Say, hey, listen, tell me all of your debts within the month, because this is the same thing the lender's going to ask you, but let's do it right now before they pull your credit and all this stuff. And then we have to find out that we're not pre-qualified, right? And then we have to do some credit work before we actually move forward with purchasing a house. It's not the end of the world, though. You got to understand. Yes, 40% of your income represents your debt. But what if you find this out working with a buyer, but they have some money saved and they can come up with a higher down payment? That means they're financing less money to purchase that property. That means their monthly mortgage loan payment is going to be less. That means that they could be under the debt, the debt ceiling. You understand? So it's not the end of the world. Or you say, hey, listen, you have this car loan payment. Could you pay off your car? Right? Could you pay off your credit cards? And then you can coordinate with whoever is financing the vehicle, financing the, giving the credit card spending limit. And you ask them, you say, hey, listen, I don't know, Chase, whoever is financing the vehicle, Ally, whatever it is. When do you report to the credit bureau when they're making on-time payments or, not on-time payments? They'll tell you, they'll share this with you. And then you can come up with a game plan. Hey, make sure you pay off the car by this date. So that way, by this date, it's going to be reported. And then after that, we can pull credit with the lender and it's not going to be an issue. It won't show up and affect you. So this is the game plan that you come up with. Not that any of this is in the textbook besides the calculation, but I'm just trying to give you a better understanding. Let's move on. Go to page 311. Let's talk about the primary mortgage market. This is where loans are originated for borrowers. And you can turn to either, look on line 2, depository lenders. There are some examples, but let me give you a better understanding of what a depository lender is. Depository lenders provide banking services in addition to giving loans. So you can go there, set up a bank account, a savings account, a checking account, and also get financing to purchase your house, for instance. So that's a depository lender. The name gives it away. You can deposit money there, right? And you can seek out financing from them, but you also have non-depository lenders. You'll see it on this list. And the example we see here is a mortgage lender. A mortgage lender, they offer financing, but they don't provide banking services. It's not like you can go to a mortgage lender and open up a checking, a savings account, and so forth, a CD. No, they don't do that. They offer loans and these various products that we talked about, these various loan programs, but you can't hold money with them. And it's not like Chase or BOA or one of those. But you'll see the types, the preference on, they focus on what type of loans. You'll see that, and you can review this chart later on tonight if you wish. But let's go to page 312. We see once again mortgage lenders. But then we come across on line 9 a mortgage brokerage company. And on the next paragraph, an MLO. Do you remember this? Okay. So when you become an MLO, you take that 22-hour class. I mean, you do that on a weekend. Now you have the ability to help somebody that needs financing, introduce them to a lender willing to give financing, and you make a percentage off the loan amount. I mean, what's better than this? And get paid twice off the same transaction. And you would hang your MLO license with a mortgage brokerage company. Just like a real estate brokerage company. You hang your sales associate license. Come again? Yeah. That's a completely separate industry, separate license. No. Remember, mortgage brokerage company is not a real estate brokerage company. There's 2 separate industries, 2 separate processes of getting licenses and so forth. They don't intermingle in that way. So you would hang your sales associate license, your real estate sales associate license with a real estate broker, and then you would hang your mortgage license with a mortgage broker. Yeah. Okay, there you go. Let's continue on. Let's talk about secondary mortgage market. So we learned about the primary. This is where loans are originated. What's the secondary? You'll see it here. It's at the end of line 4. Investor market that buys and sells existing mortgages. What? Do you remember earlier in this course, I told you that lenders will almost immediately after they originate the loan for you, do what with it? Sell off your debt. And this happens multiple times throughout the loan term. It changes hands from lender to lender. Why is this done? This is the reasoning they give in the textbook, but I'll tell you the real reason. They say it circulates the mortgage money supply. It's part of the truth. It's not the whole truth. Standardized loan requirements. Do you know that the requirements that you have to comply with to obtain financing, the qualifications that you must meet, are not really dictated by Chase, Wells, and so forth? It's dictated by these agencies who will buy the debt from Chase, Wells. So these three agencies that we'll talk about, they tell Chase, BOA, and so forth, if you're going to get financing and you want to sell it to us, they have to meet these qualifications. Isn't that interesting? So then you think the qualifications are coming from Chase and BOA and so forth. It's not. So what does that tell you? That tells you they're anticipating selling off your debt before they even give you the loan, before it's originated. They had plans to. That's why those qualifications are what they are in order for you to get financing from them. But really, it's going to be sold. Isn't that interesting? Because now they make more money off of giving you the loan upfront, points, origination fees, than holding on to your debt through interest. And they just recycle the same money. It's less risky for them, less of a headache, essentially. And when you got financing, you might have gotten a letter in the mail. Hey, make your payments to so-and-so instead of us. Unless they kept the same servicing company. Servicing companies are the companies that collect your mortgage loan payment from you every single month. But sometimes if the loan is sold, the servicing company changes as well. Or they might keep the same one. Anyhow. And they say it's circulate the mortgage money supply. What does that mean? Lenders eventually run out of money. I'll give you an example. If I'm your lender and I'm giving each of you 30-year mortgage loans and I continue doing this, eventually I'm going to run out of money. So what I can do is I can bundle your debts together and sell it as a package to one of these three agencies who will replenish my money supply so I can make other investments that are maybe more lucrative in the market. Who are these three agencies that I'm preaching about? It's Fannie, Freddie, and Ginnie. It's not people. It sounds like people. It's not. Fannie is just a nickname. The official name is FNMA. You can kind of see how they got the name Fannie Mae out of that, right? FNMA. Oldest out of the three agencies and will buy up any type of existing loan. You'll see it right here on this chart. You don't have to know that date, but it's the oldest out of the three, buys up any type of existing loan. How do I know? Buys conventional and buys government insured, that's FHA, and government guaranteed, that's VA. So yeah, not picky. Freddie Mac. The official name is FHLMC, Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation. Don't ask me how they got Freddie Mac out of that. It's because Fred, rhymes, whatever. That's at least what I know about it. And Freddie Mac likes to buy conventional loans from small banks, credit unions, savings associations. That's their preference. And Ginnie Mae, the official name is GNMA, Government National Mortgage Association. Yes, you can be tested on that acronym and what it stands for. It's the only one out of the three that carries the full faith and credit guarantee of the U.S. government. You'll see it right here, federal government. It's a government agency that buys up loans that are backed by the government. Why not? FHA, insured, VA guaranteed, are backed by the government. Non-conventional loans. All right. Now I can share with you something that's surrounded by a lot of conspiracy, page 315. And you might have done a deep dive like I did into this, and it's very intriguing to you. If you haven't done or gone down the rabbit hole, I suggest you take a look into it. It's quite interesting. And we need to know where our money comes from and how money is lent, right? What's the source of money? And where do the banks get the money from? So you'll see right here. It's the Fed. Does the bank print money? No. Where do they get money from? From the Fed. Yes. At a very nominal rate. And they turn around and rent the money to you at a higher rate. So that's arbitrage. They're making the difference. And they borrow in, you can imagine, billions, right? And that rate could change. The Fed charges at sometimes to stimulate the economy. Maybe they make funds available at 0%. That happened not that long ago. Suspected that that's what caused inflation because money was just abundant and available. It's free money. Banks are borrowing as much as they can from the Fed. Anyhow, I digress. It says the Fed is the central bank of the what? Established by Congress, 19 what? Really? What's the truth? Let me tell you the truth. And this, I'm going to tell you the truth. This is not like speculation. It's not conspiracy, even though it's surrounded by a lot of conspiracy. It is the central bank of the United States. So, but it wasn't really established by Congress in 1913. It was pushed through by Congress to the American public, but it was established by major bankers and tycoons of that era. Like who? J. Pierpont Morgan. Who's that? JP Morgan. You got it. Rothschilds, Rockefellers, there's Bilderberg brothers and all of this stuff. There's so many. Let's just name a few. What was that? It could be them as well. They controlled most of the nation's wealth, but they wanted more control. So they wanted to create a centralized money system. Hence the name. It's the central bank of the United States. They want money to be central. That's why cryptocurrency is so popular nowadays. It's a decentralization of the money system, the monetary system. This is what we call the money system, monetary. And it says to provide the nation with a safer and more stable monetary. Yeah, they're really looking out for us. They're really doing an impeccable job of this. It's very interesting. Now, there is a book. It's called The Monster of Jekyll Island. I advise you to read it. It's very intriguing. If I'm not mistaken, yeah. Let me just verify real quick. I can recommend tons. It's The Monster of Jekyll. There's a small island off the coast of Georgia. It's called Jekyll Island. The creature of Jekyll Island. The creature of Jekyll Island. That's what it is. And it tells you the true history. So these select few that had controlled most of the nation's wealth, they controlled banking, finance, railroads, steel, real estate, all of this. And they wanted more control. So they created the central bank of the United States, the Fed. And they're already in the pockets of everybody who is in control. So this is what we're going to do. And everybody answers to us. Anyhow. And they had a secret meeting off the coast of Georgia, and that's Jekyll Island. And that's where the creature of Jekyll Island, the name comes from. Anyhow, look into it. It's very intriguing. I love history. It's Halloween, isn't it? All right, so we see that today the Fed has three duties: conducting the nation's monetary policy. I'll explain that in just a second. Supervising, regulating banking institutions, protecting the credit rights of consumers. Little chuckle there. And maintaining stability of the financial system. Wow, they're doing a great job. And this stability that they're referring to is the monetary system. To make sure, what was that? Yeah. That's Nancy Pelosi. Anyhow, to make sure we're not too good or too bad for an extended time period. But every 30, 40 years, we have this continuous cycle. Haven't you noticed? If you know about history, we do exceedingly well in our economy. The bubble bursts, whatever the bubble is, everything's a bubble. We just learned recently, 2008, that even the housing market could be a bubble. Everything's a bubble. And the bubble bursts, we're right back. We're in a recession, depression, Great Depression, whatever you want to call it. They relabel it, they rename it, hoping that we'll forget about the past and continuously spend money because we are a nation of consumers. This is how we're trained here in America. Spend, spend, spend. Okay? Now, the question you have to ask yourself is, if you know that this continuous cycle exists, you can benefit just like the top 1% of the 1%. But you have to study these trends. You have to be aware of these trends because history does what? It repeats itself. And if you know what to expect in the future, you know how to benefit off of it. But insider trading, right? The only way you can truly benefit is to be able to time the market. And they say nobody can time the market. But if you're influencing changes that cause certain reactions that come from the top down, then you know what to expect. You know how it's going to affect the stock. You know how to benefit. You know what to trade and so forth. And that's why I kind of slid in Nancy Pelosi, because she knows in secret meetings what's going to happen with policy changes and how it affects certain industries, and then turns around and buys and sells stock in those industries, and has made, in her time as a Speaker of the House, has made hundreds of millions of dollars in stock trading. She's the best stock trader in the entire stock market. Why? If you're holding position in our government and know about information that the public doesn't have access to yet, before the public, it reaches their ears. Isn't that crazy? So there needs to be policy to change that. We'll see how that changes over time. But congressmen and senators are working on it. So we'll see.
There's an app just for that.
Where you can follow her trades. Yeah. And she's not the only politician. Listen, I know I'm targeting her because it's obvious what's going on, but there's other politicians that are doing this as well. And yes, there's AI bots that you can pay a subscription to, and you can see how they're trading stocks based on how these politicians are trading stocks because of inside information that they're getting. Anyhow, I'm not going to get too deep into it because it's going to get me mad. What? It's going to get me mad. Hey, you don't want to see me when I'm not just saying. What got us into trouble in 2008 and the housing market crisis was caused by financing, lax regulations. It was so easy to get financing. People that should have never qualified to finance a bicycle, let alone a $500,000 house, and getting multiple houses when they didn't qualify. So it was a lot of stated income. Oh, I make X amount of dollars. That's stated income. I'm stating what I make versus verifying it. It was a lot of stated credit. Like, oh, my credit score is 800, and then no verification on the back end. It was a lot of that, a lot of fudging, right? People playing this game. It was basically, you had a heartbeat and a pulse, you were getting a loan, okay? You get a loan, you get a loan, it's like one of those things. It was bad. So it got to a point where the cards collapse. The house of cards collapsed. And they got bailed out. All the banks got bailed out. Too big to fail. All of that. And who paid for it? Taxpayers. We paid for it. We suffer the consequences of it. It's just bad. It's bad all around. Why do banks get bailed out? They're a business. They're not backed by the government. They're independent business. Why are they getting bailed out? It's crazy. It's all crazy. It's all nonsense, but you can see who controls things when crisis happens, right? Anyhow, you could tell I like this type of stuff. And, I was always curious when I started learning about this for the first time. I think my financial literacy journey started right after high school, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that sort of thing. Are you familiar? Robert Kiyosaki and his series of books. And then I dove a little bit deeper. I got into I started with the classics, like Think and Grow Rich, which there's an original version of that, by the way, Dale Carnegie. And then also How to Win Friends, Influence People. You got to change your mindset in the beginning. And you got to read books that change your mindset before you can break out of the mold and start investing and start doing things that require 20% of your effort and yield 80% of the results that you want to achieve. So work smarter, not what? Harder. So if you know about the money game, you know about this system that we've created here in the United States and how the top 1% benefit, you can do so as well. But it's got to start with a mindset, and you got to the reason why you're taking this class right now is because you're already breaking out of the wheel, right? You're tired of working the 9 to 5. You're tired of crying. I kind of put crying in there as well, but you're tired of climbing the corporate ladder because eventually you get capped out. That's not what happens in real estate. You work harder, you benefit from it. You can see the results of your effort. So it's very unique in that way. You're an independent contractor. You're a 1099. You're running it like your own business. Just understand that moving forward. Anyhow, I'm going to stop preaching now. Let's continue on. Let's talk about federal laws regarding financing, lending money. They're contained within the Consumer Credit Protection Act. And we're going to discuss at least 3 in particular that you need to know about. We saw at least one of these before. We're going to see it again. The first is called what? We like to call it ACOA. Now, ACOA, this is essential, something you're going to be tested on. Each of these acts, these laws, federal laws, were established by Fed, the Central Bank of the United States. Once again, for fair terms, required disclosure. It's all regarding financing specifically. ACOA was implemented by the Fed under regulation what letter? You got to know this. Yes, you have to remember these letters. And each one of these federal laws has its own regulation letter. Okay? You could be tested on that alone. This one's regulation B. What helped me remember this is ACOA is all about being equal. When it comes to financing, lending money, you have to be equal. Regulation B. So with that, there are protected classes, some that we saw in a previous unit, Unit 7, do you remember? Race, color, religion, so forth. But then we're going to add a few more in regard to financing. And we'll see it here. National origin still covered. Look, you see it under ACOA? And do you remember the Fair Housing Act? Civil Rights Act, 1866, race and race only, and then we added a few more. But then you'll see right here, marital status. Age is a protected class when obtaining financing. So that means if you are 18 and you meet all the qualifications to obtain a loan, they can't deny you because you're so young. Versus a 90-year-old that wants to get a 30-year mortgage. Like, are you going to be around for the next 30 years to pay this back to us? You know, it's like, they can't deny you because of your age if you're qualified. But then we see marital status. Like single individuals. Sources of income. Alimony, child support, public assistance, part-time, wages. Child support can be used to qualify for financing. If you receive a certain amount of child support, alimony every single month. Who was this divorce between these celebrities? Kanye and Kim Kardashian, okay? He was ordered to pay $200,000 a month in child support. Imagine what house you can qualify for of $200,000 a month in income, because that shows up as an income to qualify for financing. Wow. I know, exactly. Yeah. That's why she didn't get alimony. But anyhow, childbearing plans. We're talking about like pregnant and so forth. Now let's talk about the next federal law regarding financing, TILA. I like to call it the Truth in Lending You Money Act. And I think the name gives it away. It's to tell you the true costs of obtaining financing. What truths need to be presented to you when you're a borrower trying to get a loan? Look, terms, costs. Also, what else? We're going to see it. Oh, by the way, on line 25, this was implemented by the Fed under regulation what letter? Z. So what helped me remember this? Oh, yeah. I like to call it Tilla the Godzilla. I'll help you remember. Tilla the Godzilla. On page 319. I'm glad you like it. So page 319. Tilla the Godzilla, regulation Z. Required credit cost disclosure under TILA. So what must be presented to you? So I gave you kind of just broad strokes, but here is a little bit more specific. Annual percentage rate of interest must be disclosed to you. Also, disclosure of other facts such as full cost of credit, including total cost of the loan, amount financed, total payments, number of payments, and so forth. The true cost of obtaining financing, the Truth in Lending You Money Act. TILA also protects us against bait and switch advertising. Do you know what this is? Bait and switch advertising? Companies that bait you in with an amazing deal. When you get there, they say, oh, I'm sorry, it's not available. And they try to switch you for something else. Car companies are infamous for this. And that's why if you watch these car company advertisements on TV or you're listening to the radio, no money down, interest rates as low as 0% for the first 6 months. And the reason why they have somebody talking 1,000,000 miles an hour at the end of the ad is because they're required to do so based on TILA. this federal law regarding financing. They say you have to provide disclosure as to the true cost of financing you're offering. This is if you're using triggering terms in your ad. What are triggering terms? Specific financing information. So when they're talking about numbers regarding financing, if they give you any numbers associated with the financing that they're offering, amount financed, number of payments, term of repayment, interest rate, they have to give you those additional disclosures. That's why they're not regulated on how quickly they say it at the end of the ad, just that it exists there. Or the tiniest little letters you've ever seen at the end of the TV advertisement. And this is the type of disclosure they have to give. Class exam question here. If you're using general phrases, you're not using triggering terms, you're just saying, hey, listen, financing is available. Am I using any specific financing information? No. That does not require additional disclosure for that reason. So if I say, hey, listen, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, seller financing is available. Do I have to provide any additional disclosure beyond that? No. And lastly, it also gives us the right to cancel financing, but for these 3 types of financing: home equity loans, second mortgages, and refis. And they call it a cooling off period, which is how many business days? Yep, on line 30. You see it, line 30? You notice it doesn't say anything about new loans to purchase or construct a house. That's not included in your rescission period. Look, does not apply to purchase or construct a home, financing for doing so. Only for these 3. So that means if you get a home equity loan and you sign all the loan documents, you close, they're not going to give you the money right away. They're going to wait how many business days to pass, because you have 3 business days to cancel. Any questions on that? And lastly, we see RESPA. You remember RESPA? Okay, RESPA, the real estate, the keyword is settlement. Settlement Procedures Act. And what helped me remember, well, by the way, this was implemented by the Fed under regulation, what letter? X. And for that reason, this one's not so amazing. But what helped me remember is calling it REXPA, Regulation X, REXPA. So all of these federal laws regarding financing are regulated by the CFPB. We saw this in a previous unit, including ILSA, Interstate Land Sales Full Disclosure Act. CFPB is a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I think the name gives it away. But what's the whole purpose of RESPA? Well, I told you the keyword is settlement, right? It's designed to ensure that borrowers are informed regarding the amounts and types of expenses they're going to pay at the what? At the closing, guys. The settlement. Okay, let's continue. And it also regulates the money exchanged when you're closing on a real estate transaction. The last time we talked about this was in Unit 5 with referral fees. Do you remember? We say referral fees are governed by RESPA, this federal law. And RESPA says that if you refer business to a lawyer, they can't turn around and give you a kickback. If you refer business to a title company, they can't give you a kickback. Do you remember that? Okay, so that's repeated again. Look, we already talked about this in Unit 5. We don't have to go through it again. Any questions on this? Any questions? All right. Now, both TILA and RESPA have been integrated in one disclosure. That's called the TRID, T-R-I-D, TILA RESPA Integrated Disclosure, as of October 3rd, 2015. Yeah. Not that you need to know that date, but I'm just sharing with you fond memories of this big change in the financial industry. It was a lot of regulation because of 2008. It took them 7 years to implement all of this new regulation and new disclosures and all these things. Anyhow, what do you need to know about TRID? Go to page 321. Yep. Look at what it says here. When you submit the loan application as a borrower, you'll see right here, borrower's loan application, the lender, within how many business days? 3 business days must give you something called a loan. What? I'm highlighting it. Yeah, I like to call it, just to help you remember, the loan estimate disclosure. And that creates a acronym, LED, like an LED light. The loan estimate should fall within 10% of your exact closing costs. Should fall within 10%, but it's just an estimate. When do you receive your exact closing costs? Look what it says here. With it, it says at least how many business days before the closing? 3 business days. And it's broken down on a document called a, yeah, we like to call it a CD. You know what a CD is, right? You're not too young to know what a CD is, right? Compact disc. Okay, so we got LED and we got a CD, right? Hope you remember. Nostalgic. Having the book of CDs in the car, on the visor, making your mixtapes, burning the CDs. Yeah? It's nostalgic. What happened to the good mixtapes? You know? No more mixtapes. Anyhow, everything's streaming. Yeah, exactly. Pay for the subscription. We'll give you a mixtape. Anyhow. Any questions? That's the end of unit 13. Longest unit in the textbook. How you guys feel? It's a lot, right? Now here's the thing. Yep. I didn't sugarcoat it. All right. Unit 15. We still got time. So I want to go through unit 15. It takes me 5 minutes. Don't take out your, no, don't take out your, you got to time me? Okay, sure. If that, you might receive maybe 1 question on your state exam from unit 15. If that. I'm just going to tell you the most important parts. Sound good? Ready to go. All right. First page of this unit, page 351. Physical characteristics of real estate. What are the physical characteristics of the product we're selling, which is real estate? Our product is immobile. Page 351. Page 351. If your house doesn't sell well in an area, are you going to move it to another location where you think it's going to sell better? Probably not. Okay. Even if you can physically pick up the house and move the structure, what about the land it's sitting on? Can you move the land? Land is indestructible. You see that? Refers to its durability. All right. And there's no 2 properties alike. Real estate is what? We refer to this, we use a term to describe this. It's called non-homogeneous. Non-homogeneous, yeah. Means there's no 2 alike. Homogeneous means they're alike. Okay. So it's the opposite. Now let's talk about economic characteristics of real estate. Who has ultimate control? It's right there. Wow. I'm not lying to you guys. Not conspiracy. Do you know the relationship between supply, demand, and how that affects price? If there's a large supply of something and little demand, what happens to the price? If there's a high demand, little supply. Okay, yeah, it's Taylor Swift tickets now. Anyhow, so, or Bad Bunny tickets, you know? Anyhow, so that's the same thing with real estate, but guess what? It's not overnight. In our industry, it doesn't happen overnight. You can see this change beyond the horizon. You can see it coming because our market is what? Slow to respond to these changes in supply and demand through policy, through interest rates, through all these things. All right. And what's the most important feature to determine value in real estate? It comes down to 3 things. Aha, yes. But the term we use to describe this is situs. S-I-T-U-S. Remember that. Situs. Yes. So it's where we like to live based on job opportunities for our kids. Schools for our kids, job opportunities for us, transportation facilities, crime, all that stuff. Supply of housing, all that. Go to page 353. We got to kick our kids out and make them. No. Do we as consumers have an influence over supply of housing? No, because look at what supply of housing is affected by. Availability of skilled laborers. That's not us. That's not the buyer. construction loans, financing, land and materials. But go to the next page. Do we as consumers have an influence over demand of housing in our area? Yes. And this is caused by price, size of our household, population, our income, what we can afford, what we qualify for, and then, of course, situs, area preference. Class exam question on this page. Highlight this. Lines 8 through 10. Definition of a household unit, but we discussed this already. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, a household unit is a dwelling space where a family can have privacy, a separate dwelling space. Didn't we describe this as a unit on the first day of class? And residential is how many units? 4 units or less on how many acres? 10 acres or less, yes. Let's continue on. And last thing I want to show you for this unit, go to the next page. This is page 357 at the bottom. We see on line 32, a seller's market. And then on line 35, a buyer's market. Page 357. You see it? Line 32 and line 35. A seller's market is good for who? Yeah, I'm not trying to trick you. That's me. This means there's more what than what. If we're in a seller's market, there's more what than what? More demand than what? Supply. Now's the time to sell. Get the most for your investment. It's a seller's market. Okay. Versus a buyer's market, which is good for who? The buyer. This is when there's more supply than what? Now's the time to buy, and you can fight for more favorable terms and so forth, right? Any questions on this? We're done with this unit.
Timer.
You were actually a minute under.
Yep.
It's like 2 minutes more.
So since we have some time, I want to give you an option so that way maybe we can get done early. Okay? And then once you're full of candy and you're just like, oh, I can't go to the class, we can still cover all that we need to cover within a shorter time if you're willing. I'm not going to force this on you. We're scheduled to be here till when we're scheduled to be here. But we're done early, so we can actually squeeze in a few other units. 2 other units in particular is what I think we can accomplish. And they are, I don't want to say just as quick, but like 10, 15 minutes apiece. What do you think? You guys with it? Anybody oppose? For the sake of the anniversary. Let's make it about the anniversary. That's right.
They're old. They want to go without me.
Mine is the-
My oldest just turned 18.
That's amazing. Congratulations. There you go. Still in the house, I'm assuming. Okay. Still going to school or? All right, cool.
He's senior.
Nice. All right. So I want to attempt to cover units 17 and 19. 17 and 19. Yeah. Yeah, 16, it would be too much for today. Here's the thing. Okay. Really? 17, 18, and 19 are quick. 18 takes me about 30 to 40 minutes. And then 17 and 19 take me about 10, 15 minutes each. So if you're willing, we can knock out these units. And then tomorrow we can cover units 14 and 16, and then we'll be done with all the units. Yeah. It's not how it's typically scheduled, but I'm trying to work with you guys. And we have a break at 7:15. So let's continue. Is that all right? Let's start with 17. Yeah, we could do 17. Unit 17. Let's go. Y'all ready? You focused? All right. Real estate as an investment and selling businesses. How are they different? Let's talk about it. We're actually going to begin on page 392. And I want you to simply highlight these terms. You have a glossary in the back of your book, and I created flashcards for you that go through all of these terms. So I could just briefly describe them, but you do have a glossary, utilize it. Appreciation is increase in value. Assets are things of value. Cash flow is the spendable income of a business. Equity, we heard about this already, is the difference between what it's worth and what you owe. And because you have equity, maybe you leverage the equity in one asset to purchase another. Highlight this, lines 38 and 39 through 40, positive and negative leverage. Okay, and go to the next page. Liquidity is what you can sell it for rapidly without loss of capital. Basis is your initial cost for the investment, which you originally paid. Capital gains, capital losses, we'll see this in Unit 18 along with a tax shelter. But then we come across, class exam question, a REIT. Maybe you've heard of a REIT, maybe you haven't, but it's a publicly traded company. It's a trust. They collect money from investors, just like hedge funds. You know what hedge funds are? But unlike a hedge fund that uses your money to buy more stock, REITs use your money to buy real estate. But since they're crowdfunding, they're collecting money from several investors and they're building a stockpile of cash. They go after big long-term investments like shopping centers, malls, office buildings, apartment buildings, and so forth. And based on the rate of return, they give you dividends on your stock that you own. The benefit of this is maybe you're worried or you're nervous about investing in real estate yourself because of the lack of knowledge and taking that first step forward. So this is a good alternative because you're investing in professionals, experts' ability to invest for you, and they just give you a return on the stock that you purchase within their company. Make sense? And another benefit is you can sell your stock at any time. You can liquidate. If you buy that property yourself, when can you get your money out? By doing what with the property? Selling it, or gradually over time by renting it, right? So when you normally invest in real estate, it's not liquid. It's illiquid. That's how we describe it. Unless you invest in a REIT, then you can just sell your stock. Risk. What's risk? It's a chance of losing all or part of your investment. No risk, no what? No reward. You got to take risk if you want to see where and this is the investor life. This is the entrepreneurial life. You have to take risk if you want to receive a reward. And that's the problem that most people, investing might not be for everybody. It could be for everybody, but if you're limited by your limiting beliefs and then that lack of knowledge and that being scared to take analysis paralysis, you get overwhelmed. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. You got to take that leap. Otherwise, you'll be stuck in that wheel. And this is the first step to getting out of the wheel. What's the advantages versus disadvantages of investing in real estate? It's summarized on the next page. So we can go through this chart. The advantages: above average rate of return if the market is good. Always tax advantages if you invest in real estate. It's a good hedge against inflation because what typically happens to the value of property over time? It appreciates versus letting the money sit in your bank account and losing purchasing power every year because of inflation. Because inflation, how does it affect your money sitting in your bank account? Every year, you can buy less and less with that $1 in your bank account. You understand? Your dollar becomes worth less. You understand? But if you take that dollar and put it into real estate, what tends to happen? You understand? So that's hedge is like protection against inflation. That's what we're describing here. Leverage is possible when you have equity buildup, and those are both benefits. Disadvantage: lack of liquidity. Remember, it's illiquid. More localized market. You have to have boots on the ground. You have to go and see the property before you bid on it through this online auction. Don't just bid on it blindly. A lot of investors make a mistake that way. You got to know it looks great from Google Maps, the street view on Google Maps, but then you get there and you say, oh my gosh, it's burned to a crisp. And then you don't find that until you buy it and then go over there after you purchase it. I mean, come on. Expenses associated with expertise. If you don't have the expertise when investing in real estate, you got to hire people, and professionals do not work for free, just like property management, right? And real estate is a labor intensive investment. So if you choose to be an absentee owner, you got to hire somebody, and they don't work for free. And there's a relatively high degree of risk if you don't know what you're doing, but everybody can figure it out. Everybody. Anyhow, and the investment is made and the risk is eliminated when you purchase the investment. You have to pay the right amount and know what to pay for that property, but that's when the investment is made. Not when you gradually rent it out over time or when you sell it. It's when you purchase. Okay. This is all different kinds of risk. You can read through it if you want to. I don't want to say it's irrelevant, but you can read through it later on tonight. Now let's talk about selling a business and how it's different. What do they call you when you help others in the real estate profession, a real estate licensee, buying, selling, leasing businesses? What do they call you? You see that on line 3, business broker. This is page 397, line 3. Yeah. Does that require a separate license? A business to be a business broker? No. All you need is a real estate sales associate license. And if this is your specialty, they just call you a business broker because you're brokering business sales, leases. Okay. But it's different. When you're selling a business, it's not just like selling a single family house. It is different. It's a different beast. So there are, yes, you can. Now, here's the thing. Align yourself with a broker that can help you facilitate that transaction, because you need to rely on their expertise if you don't know what you're doing in the beginning. And a lot of brokers don't do business transactions. I can just tell you. And commercial property. But if they have a commercial division in their brokerage, then yeah, that's something that would be intriguing, be attractive to you. But when you're selling a business, it is inherently different. And there are things that have an effect on what that business is sold for versus just selling a property, just the structure, the physical. When you're selling a business, you are also selling something that's not physical. They call it intangible assets, something that you can't touch or feel, like goodwill. That's reputation of a business, loyalty of customers. You know this? Who sold their business? Anybody? Yeah, at least one of us. If a company has a horrible reputation, will that affect the value of the business when you're selling it? Versus a company that has an amazing reputation? Yes. So that's not something you can feel, but it does have a value and must be added to the sale. But you got to know that comes with a certain level of expertise. And then also going concern value. It's the value of an established business versus the value of a business that has yet to be established. If a business is easier to keep going, like a franchise, it has a system. It's plug and play. The new owner has a system they can rely on and keep it going. There's value in that, right? Versus a company that's just mom and pop. And you might not know what you're getting into and got to figure it out along the way. It could hurt the value. So that's what we see here. And this is the differences that we went through. And then a wider geographic appeal. When you're selling a business, it might not be tied to a physical location. What if you're selling a software company? Is the real estate, the building that company owns even relevant? Probably not, right? So here's the thing that you got to understand. When you're a real estate licensee and you're helping somebody sell their business, you might not be selling real estate. You might be selling a concept. You might be selling an idea. You might be selling a brand and the trademark and all this stuff, the licensing. So, but you still need a real estate license to sell it, make commission off of it here in Florida. Other states, they don't require a real estate license if you're helping somebody sell their business. But here in Florida, we do, even if real estate is not included in the transaction. That's what I'm telling you. Look, active real estate license is required. Any questions here? Go to page 398. Have you seen the TV show Shark Tank? Okay. You like the TV show? Most people, they enjoy watching the TV show. What's good TV? When these entrepreneurs are presenting these wonderful ideas and they get a deal done, everybody's celebrating. These entrepreneurs are verbally presenting to the sharks that might invest with them an income statement. They're saying, here are our income versus our expenses over a certain time period. That's good TV, right? We generated X amount of dollars over X amount of time. And that brings you in to their story and so forth. Oh, wow, they're very successful. But you notice that a lot of the deals that are done on TV don't exist in real life. You're like, that was such a great idea. Why don't I see it on the shelves, right? Because I want to buy it. It's because 40% of those deals fall through. They don't end up even though they celebrate, shake hands, and all of this wonderful thing that's good TV. What's bad TV and what you don't see happen on the back end is after they shake hands, celebrate, these sharks that get the deal done, they send out their army of lawyers and accountants to meticulously go through their financials and see if the company is actually viable. And what they're saying on TV is actually true. And if there's actual, like, something you can sink your teeth into and make money off of. And that's what you see in a balance sheet. I know because I had friends that presented on Shark Tank, and one of them got a deal done. And they have to prepare this before going on the show. And it tells you the company's complete financial position. It not only shows you the income statement, line 28, but also look on line 27, the assets, liabilities, and the owner's equity. So that'll tell you everything you need to know about the company to determine if it's financially viable or not. Does that make sense? You might think that selling a company is pretty simple, but it could be. It could be just cutting a check and then here's the business. I'll sign it over to you, whatever. But when I'm helping somebody sell their business, I'll have two other professionals that absolutely need to be involved. If they don't have them already for helping them run their business, then I will recommend. They need an accountant. We talked about that at the break, and then also a lawyer. Accountant is going to prepare the financials that any buyer that's interested is going to ask for. Okay. And then also a lawyer to transfer the entity, the licensing, right? All of this stuff, the intellectual property, the IP. So business, but a business could be very complex, like maybe a furniture store. You're thinking, oh, that's easy to sell. Are you making the furniture? Are you buying it wholesale, selling it retail? Are you selling online? What percentage comes from online sales, in-person sales? Okay, how much inventory do you have? If we sell all your inventory, how much is that worth? Are you paying salespeople? What are you paying them? What's your income structure? What's your payroll? Are you delivering the furniture, or are you, do you own the vehicles that are delivering the furniture? Are you leasing them? It's like, you can go on and on and on. So it can be very complex. There's different ways to determine the value of a business. We'll talk about the first three in Unit 16, which we'll save for tomorrow. But then we come across class exam question, liquidation analysis, or valuation based on liquidation. A company's value might be determined by just how much money they can make off of selling all of your inventory that you're holding on to. Oh, we can make $300,000 if we sell out your inventory. How often do you turn over your inventory? Okay, we'll give you a multiple of that. We'll make $300,000 a year off of selling all your inventory. We'll give you 3 times what you generate in a year. And that's the valuation that we're willing to put on your business. What is the investor saying? They're saying, I want to break even in 3 years. You understand? I'm going to give you 3 times what you make annually. So in 3 years, I'll get all my money back. And after that, it's $300,000 every single year. Does that make sense? So investors actively look for things like that. And here are the typical steps you would go through when you're selling your business. Not that you need to memorize all of this, and they could be out of order depending on the stage you are in selling your business. But these are the typical steps. Anyhow. Take a break. Oh, look at that. Got you done at 7:15. Be back at 7:25. 7:25. Stretch out, grab a snack, do what you got to do. county appraiser. Yep. Now, look on line 11. Property taxes are paid how often? Yeah, every single year. But they're paid in arrears. What does that mean? Look in parentheses. It means at the end of the tax year. So let's talk about the schedule. And it's this figure 18.1. So bear with me. I'm going to share some interesting information with you. January 1st, what happens? Tax year begins, property is assessed, lien is attached. And if you have any exemptions that you might qualify for, like your homestead tax exemption, you can file January 1st. What they don't tell you here is you have to have owned the property prior to January 1st to claim it as your homestead come January 1st. So if you close after January, you have to wait till next year before you can make it your homestead and get all the benefits. And you have up to March 1st to get that exemption in. You basically file your homestead with the county. November 1st is when property taxes for the current year become due and payable. But look up here. You have up to, write this down, April 1st, April Fool's Day, of the next year to pay it before it becomes what? Past due. We call it delinquent. You see, I just moved it over. I took it and moved it over here because it makes a little bit more sense if you see it like this. So November 1st, isn't that coming up? So November 1st, 2024 is when everybody's property taxes in Florida become due and payable. And the earlier you pay it, the more money you save in property taxes, by the way. They give you a small discount if you pay it early. And you have up to April 1st of 2025 to pay it before it becomes past due. And we'll talk about at the end of this unit what happens if you're late and how much more money it could cost you or losing your property. Let's continue on. Are you guys with me so far? Let's discuss page 408. If you disagree with the assessed value that the county determines, do you have the right to dispute it? Yes. It's called protest what? Protest procedure. You're protesting the amount as far as the assessed value is concerned, because that's what they determine. And the higher the assessed value, the more taxes you pay. So you want them to bring the assessed value down so you pay on a lower amount. And it's as simple as ABC. At least that's what they say. The first step is to complain to the county property appraiser. If you're not satisfied, complain to the value adjustment board. And if you're still not satisfied, take them to court, like Disney, taking Orange and Osceola County to court every single year to adjust the assessed value. Every single year. It doesn't stop. Go to page 409. Very good topic. What do we see? So when do you not have to pay is basically what we're going to discuss first. And there are two groups that do not have to pay. If you're immune, that means you don't have to pay property taxes. But what types of properties, look up here, are immune? Yeah, government properties. Give me an example of a government property. Yeah, they don't have to pay property taxes. Give me another example. Post office, they don't have to pay property taxes. Okay, think of any military base, municipal airport, not a landing strip in somebody's backyard. Public library, not Books A Million. You understand? What types of properties are exempt? And they don't have to pay property taxes either. Look, I'm going to highlight it. Look, on line 9, religious and nonprofit, 501c3. My opinion? You want to know my true opinion on this? Religious facilities, they need to pay property taxes. Because last time I checked, they're running it like a business. Any of your kids go to private school, religious-based education? Did you go to a private school, religious-based education? You think that tuition is free? So they're making money off tuition, right? And these schools grow huge. And they use that money to acquire more property that they don't have to pay any property taxes on. And it's just a continuous cycle. But they're making money. And they're paying all of the teachers. They're paying all the staff. They're paying all the operations managers, everything. And they don't pay any property taxes? Okay, interesting. And they own prime real estate in every major city on the planet. And don't pay any property taxes. I did a calculation. It would add trillions every single year back to our economy if they pay property taxes. The reason why I say this is because those religious facilities or organizations, you hear stories, and they use followers' money to buy a mansion. And they're living in the mansion, right? And they say, okay, well, you bought this mansion that you're living in with church's money. You know about these big churches and so forth. What's going on here? Oh, well, we use it as a retreat for some of our followers. And come on. They need to pay property taxes, my opinion. Yes, that is true. And it has nothing to do with my faith. It's just what I think is right is right. You hear what I said? What I think is right is right. So agree with me. Now, and for everybody else, we might receive this benefit, homestead tax exemption. This is if you're a homeowner for your primary residence. Only one can be your homestead, right? The property you're residing in. And you only have to file once with the county. We talked about this in a previous unit, didn't we? It comes with certain protections and benefits. But you might wonder, okay, how does that work? Okay, how do I save money for homesteading my property? Let me share some information with you because you need to know this. And I'm going to print out some handouts for some of you, 2 of you, right? And the rest of us, we have the handouts printed. I want you to go to the one that says calculating property taxes. We'll go here first, and then we'll transition to saving money on property taxes for homesteading. So I want you to know about your property tax bill first, and then talk about how you save money on your tax bill and what it's composed of. So let me print this real quick. Okay. Follow along until you get this handout. How's your property tax bill calculated? Well, every year the county establishes the what value for your property? The assessed value. And that's what they're going to charge you taxes on, not what it's worth. And you're probably wondering, okay, why is, those of you who are homeowners, why is the assessed value of my property, what it says on my tax bill, less than what my property is actually worth? Because I know my property is worth more than that. And you're not going to say nothing because you want to be charged taxes on a lower amount, but it's by design. It's called the Save Our Home benefit. They do this on purpose. They know what they're doing. And they know what your property is actually worth, just so you know, because they are public records and they know what properties are selling for in the surrounding areas. And they have all the software to back it up. But anyhow, it's by design. And you multiply it by a tax rate. But what's interesting is if you look at your tax bill, the tax rate is expressed in mills. They call it a millage tax rate. I'll explain that in just a moment. And then when you do the math, you just look, A times B equals C, right? You just multiply and you get your taxes that are owed. So understanding millage rates, let's talk about this. Tax rates are expressed in what? A mill is 1,000th of a dollar. That's all you need to know. But how would you represent that in decimal form? You'll see it right here. 0.001. Do you see that? Isn't 0.001 1,000th of a dollar? It is. But to help you remember, because I have ways to help you remember these things, think of anybody speak Spanish? Anybody speak, well, you speak Portuguese, right? Portuguese, a little bit of Spanish, French. Okay, if you speak other languages, you might notice that mil means what? Mil means 1,000. And other various languages besides English. Mil means, think of a millipede, right? Think of millimeter. Anyhow, mil means 1,000. So mil is Latin for the number 1,000. And what a coincidence. Mils are 1,000th of a dollar. Yeah? Okay. And you have to know how to convert mils. This is the hardest part to it. is knowing how to convert mills. But if you remember, mill is 1,000, the conversion is simple. When they tell you on your tax bill, it's 5 mills that they're going to charge you for city taxes, you have to know that you're not going to use that for your calculation. It's not going to be 5 mills. You have to convert it. All you have to do is divide by what? 1,000. Divide by mill, and you get the true tax rate. Why do they do this? Why give us mills? Why not just give us the real decimal number that we can use to do the calculation? It's because they want to make it confusing. It's by design, so you don't ask any questions and pay your flipping taxes. Now, something you need to know. When it comes to mills, the maximum amount of mills they can charge you is 10 mills per, look up here. Your tax bill is broken down usually into these 3 components: per city, per county, per what? School board. So if you look at anybody's tax bill, a lot of the time it's broken down, and we're talking about for Florida, based on these 3 taxes: city tax, county tax, school board tax. And it's all geographic, based on where your property is located. What city is it located in? What county is it located in? What school board is it part of? That will dictate what the tax rate is. But they show you the tax rate in mills. You got to know to convert it before you do the math. And what does mill mean? I'm repeating it. 1,000. So just divide by 1,000 and you got it. I'll show you. I'll give you an example of this. Anyhow, let's say the assessed value that the county determines is $400,000. And that's going to, yes. Thank you. If you can pass this behind you. No problem. Okay. So the assessed value, $400,000. Are you with me so far? Who determines the assessed value? The county. And your tax bill is broken down into these 3 components. We have to individually do a calculation and then add it together at the end. And that will be your total tax bill based on those 3. So they'll tell you in a question what the millage rate is for city, county, and school board. You have to know to convert it. That's the hardest part to this. What's the maximum they can charge you per? Yeah. So let's go straight to the top. For city, let's say it's 10 mills. So what would you have to do to convert it? Divide by what? Exactly. Simply divide by 1,000. And you will get what? Take 10, divide it by 1,000. Tell me what you get. Yeah, you get 0.01. That's the rate that you're going to use when you're doing your math, your calculation. So not 10, you don't multiply by 10, you have to convert it. Mil, 1,000. Just divide by 1,000, you got it. And the math is simple. Look, you just multiply across. I told you, this is the hardest part to it, converting. But the math is simple. Just multiply and tell me what you get. What's the taxes you owe for the city that your property is located within? It's going to be $4,000. Are you with me? Okay. Let's say for county, okay, no worries. So let's say 5 mills, convert it. Divide by 1,000. Tell me what you get. 0.005. And then let's say for school board, I'm just making this up, by the way. It's just an example. Is 2.5 mils. Yeah, 2.5 mils. So if you convert that, divide by 1,000, tell me what you get. 0.0025. This should be consistent. All right, now look, do the math. 400,000 times 0.005 should be half. 2,000. And then if you take 400,000, multiply by 0.0025, what do you get? You get 1,000. And now what do you do with these 3? And that will be your total tax bill, which is going to be what? $7,000. Are you with me? You see how simple the math is? The hardest part is converting. Just once again, remember this. Mil is Latin for the number 1,000. and you just divide by 1,000. Any questions here? All right. Now, sometimes though, if I can mention something to you, where's your property located? What? Waterford Lakes. Okay. So I know for a fact Waterford Lakes is not within, it's an Orlando address? Okay. So it's not within downtown Orlando. It's not within the city limits. So her tax bill, she's only going to be responsible for county and school board taxes. How do I know that? When a crime is committed in her area, not that one is, but I mean, it happens. Who shows up? What kind of police? Orange County. Orange County shows up. If a crime is committed downtown Orlando, who shows up? OPD. OPD shows up. You answered that really quick. Okay. Anyhow. Anyhow. So what does that mean? If you own a property in downtown Orlando or within the Orlando city limits, you pay city because you're within the city, you pay county, Orange County, and you also pay school board for the area. But if you're outside of the city limits, you pay county and school board. Interesting. All right. I'm just sharing some information with you that you won't necessarily see in your textbook. So now we can talk about homestead exemption. I mentioned in a previous unit that I would share with you how that's calculated. So let me print this for you guys that need it. File, print, to, boom. Okay, it's going to print. But what I want to get to is this handout right here. You got this handout? Okay. Then I'm printing this. So just be patient with me. Yep. I'll make it simple. Now in your textbook, it separates these three. You see how color coordinated? It separates these three components. And then you're going to be tested on your state exam, even at your class exam, based on these three sections. But I'm going to show you how simple it is. Just bear with me. You'll get it. Just take out this one real quick. This one specifically. Oh, okay. Pass one back. Or pass those two back. Okay. Sorry, just getting handouts. All right, now, we know when you homestead, you save money in property taxes, right? Okay. And I alluded to that in a previous unit. We'll see it broken down, and it's going to make a little bit more sense as we go through it on this chart. On the left column, you see what at the top? What does it say? Starts with the Q, qualified. So this is what will determine if you're qualified for certain exemptions. And we know our tax bill is broken into these three components: city, county, and what? School board. You'll find this interesting, and you need to know this as a homeowner. Make sure it's accurate. If the first set of exemptions is based on homesteading your property, claiming it as your primary residence, and the assessed value that the county determines. Check this out. If the assessed value of your primary residence, your homestead, is less than $25,000, guess what? You don't pay any property taxes. You get an exemption, means you don't have to pay property taxes on up to the assessed value. But we know that's not the case for most of our properties. Whose property is this? Okay, you get where I'm going with this. If the assessed value is between 25 and 50, you notice it's tiered, right? You just get the base exemption. You don't have to pay taxes on $25,000 of the assessed value that they determine. Okay? If your assessed value is between 50 and 75, look at what we have here. This is where you got to pay attention. For city and county, you notice it's similar, right? You not only get the base of 25, but also a prorated amount of up to 25. But for school board, it stops at what? $25,000 exemption is taken off the assessed value, okay? And that's consistent on the next one as well, just so you understand. But most of our homes here in Florida have an assessed value of over what? 75,000. Let's just be honest here. And for city and county, you get the maximum of what? 50,000. And for school board, it stops at what? 25. Are you with me so far? But I also mentioned in a previous unit that you might qualify for more of an exemption, but you're not going to like what makes you qualified for saving more money. And that's what's on these next sections. Okay. Look at the next section here. What's the first one we see? If you lose your spouse, if you're a widow or a widower, you get an additional how much of an exemption? 5,000 across the board on top of the 25 to 50,000 you get initially. Okay. But I'd rather keep my spouse and pay taxes on $5,000. Okay. If you're legally blind, I'd rather see and not, come on, really? So you get an additional $5,000 for that. Totally and permanently disabled non-veteran, you get $5,000 additional for that. So if you're a blind widow with one arm, you get $5,000 for each, subtracted from the assessed value, and then you pay taxes on a lesser amount. Okay? If you're totally and permanently disabled as a quadriplegic, what does quad mean? It means four. This means you don't have the use of all four of your limbs. In this case, you're totally disabled and you're totally exempt. They don't pay property taxes. That's what it means here. If you're totally disabled as a first responder and their spouses, what's a first responder? Police? No, not war. Police? EMT? Fire. Yes. They don't pay any property taxes. God bless them. Yeah. Totally exempt. You see it? Okay. And then the last is for military. That's these last three. If you're at least 10% disabled, that's weird. You get an additional how much for that? 5,000. Well, here's the thing. That means the U.S. military puts a percentage on your body parts. They do. Because when you go on active duty, they give you a physical. And when you're discharged, they give you a discharge physical. And if you're missing a finger or you can't hear or whatever the case, throughout the course of active duty, each body part has a percentage. And if it adds up to at least how much percent, you get an additional $5,000 exemption. How degrading is that? What's the mind, right? PTSD. I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying it's degrading that the military puts percentages. For instance, you'll see how degrading. A pinky has less a percentage than a thumb. Because, we need our thumbs more than our pinkies. I get that, right? But it's degrading, right? Your body part is worth this percent. Come on. Yes. Yes. At least 10% is the rule. Service connected, totally disabled, and their spouses don't pay any property taxes. Yes, PTSD. The mind could get you 100%. Yeah. Surviving spouse is a veteran who died on active duty, doesn't pay any property taxes either. So you'll receive, the reason why you need to know this is because you're going to receive a question on your exam. You have a blind widow with one arm. They have a homesteaded property with an assessed value of $500,000. And their spouse died on active duty. So they mention all those other things, but it's irrelevant because if you're a surviving spouse of somebody who died in the military, you don't pay any property taxes. That would be your answer, right? So you just got to know what's on this chart. It's not complicated. It is memorization. But anyhow, a lot of the stuff is like consistent across the board. Look, all of this is the same, whether it's city, county, and school board. You see? So really you have to memorize this, right? Anyhow, let's move on. All of what I just showed you, that chart, is what you need to know for class exam question number what? You'll see the charts. If I'm not mistaken, we already highlighted that. It's actually on page 410. Page 410. Yep, 18.2. What does it look? How does it look different? Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so instead they just consolidated because look, you have more charts that you're going to be tested on. But I made the handout to make it simpler. I'll put all in one spot for you. So all of those, what's on that handout is what you're going to be tested on for question 96. That handout. All three charts. 18.2, 3, and 4. Any questions? Same question. All right, page 412. I already showed you this, so it's going to save us some time. We know this is all about tax rates. What do we know about tax rates? Tax rates are expressed in what? A mil is a thousandth of a dollar. Any questions about that? It's on that handout. What's the maximum millage rate they can charge you for each? No more than, yeah, exactly. That's all consistent. I just put it on the handout for you guys. Okay. Let's move on to, this is now the rest of this unit is going to go by pretty quick. Go to page 414 and we have something called the Save Our Home Act. The Save Our Home Act. This is a good thing. For your homesteaded property, this benefit caps how much your property taxes can increase by annually. No more than how much percent annually? You got it. Any questions? And the SOH benefit, you remember? I talked about this. The assessed value of your property, they make it less even though your property is worth more, which is great, but they're doing it by design. Should you discuss property taxes with buyers or make speculation as to what they're going to pay next year in property taxes? No, because you're not qualified to do so. We already talked about that in a previous unit. The Florida Greenbelt Law. You probably have never heard of this, but Florida Greenbelt Law is to promote agricultural use of properties. And how do they do it? By giving farmers the lowest rate of property taxes. Farmers pay the lowest rate. What is agricultural use? What are they using the land for? Farming, yeah. Like what? Yeah, citrus. Exactly. Even pine trees, citrus groves, palm groves as well, cows. Have you ever seen a big field fenced in with a whole bunch of cows roaming around? And you're like, there's no structure. Are these just random cows? Well, they're doing it because they want to claim the least amount, the lowest tax rate possible. Because somebody from the county, if you try to claim this, will come out with basically a checkboard, clipboard, and they'll check off how many, you have to have a certain amount of farm animals per acre to qualify, or plants per acre to qualify. And they'll literally come out and count the sheep.
That's why they have the tag on them.
Even Disney takes advantage of this. If you ever drive on Disney property, they got fields fenced in with cows. It's because until they're ready to develop on it, they want to save as much as they can on property taxes. As long as it's zoned agricultural and they put the farm animals, they qualify. Now, I'm not talking about putting cows or donkeys or pigs in your backyard, okay? That's not what I'm talking about. Do you really have chicken? Oh, okay, all right.
But what about an orange tree?
Just one orange tree? A citrus grove, yes. But it has to be zoned agricultural and you have to have a certain amount per acre. Yeah, and you're like, what's going on? Or pine trees even. You're like, they're all growing in a row. Is that natural that they do that? No, it's because they planted them and they're trying to take this benefit. Now you know. And of course, they sell the trees as well for wood and all that stuff. So they're making money and paying the least amount of taxes. Anyhow, have you ever heard of a special assessment? If you're a property owner, maybe you've seen this on your property tax bill. A special assessment is a one-time charge for any work that the city or county did within the year on your property, directly or indirectly. It's a one-time charge added to your property tax bill for any work that the city or county did to improve your property, directly or indirectly. So the most common example of this, and what I'm going to show you, is street paving. If the county comes in and repaves the street, Have you ever seen them redoing streets? It's not free for the county to do the work. It's not free for you. And they charge you as a homeowner based on how much of your property is touching the road. And I'm going to show you how that's calculated. It's really quite simple. Now, I'll give you an example of this. Look, street assessment, paving assessment. And we're going to use this one as an example, Lot A. And you see the measurement of Lot A? The way they describe measurements of lots, this is important. They always tell you the width first and then the depth. But if it's for street paving, we don't care about how deep the property is. We care about how much of your property is touching the road. So it's always the first part of the measurement that you need to pay attention to. Width by depth. So we're going to use the 100 feet, right? Here it is. You'll be tested on this for your class exam. And the example that I want to show you using the depiction, the image on the previous page is right here. Example 1. The city is paving the streets in a neighborhood. The city is going to cover 30% of the expense. Wow, thank you. The city approved a bid to pave the streets at a cost of $24 per running foot, linear foot. How much is the special assessment for Lot A that measures what? 100 by 125. Do we care about the 125 feet? We care about the first part of that measurement, which is the width, not the depth. So let's focus on that. Here it is. Here's the steps. How much of your property is touching the road? 100 feet. And what's the cost per foot for the paving? What? So that's $2,400 on top of what I pay in property taxes just because they want to repave the street in front of my house? Why do I have to pay for it? Because it's improving your property. They justify it. They say, well, does it make your property look nicer if you have a repaved, fresh street in front of it? Yeah. And it's not free, so we're going to charge you. But we told you we're going to cover 30% of the expense, which means you pay how much percent of the expense? 70%. And then that's still going to give you, when you do the math, you still get a lot of money. If you multiply by 70%, you're on the hook for $1,680. But how many sides of the street are there? I'm asking you, how many sides of the street are there? There's always 2 sides of the street. So you always only pay what? Half. Cut it in half, which means you divide by what? 2. And the question I always get, okay, Michael, what if nobody is living across the street? What if the government owns the property? What if it's conservation land? Doesn't matter. What if it's in a cul-de-sac? Doesn't matter. Just take whatever the special assessment and divide it by 2. Divide it in half. And that's what your special assessment is. No, it's only if they did work within the year. Then it will show up on your tax bill. And it will say special assessment, and it'll tell you why. Street repaving, or repairing a street light in front of your house, or repairing the sewer drain because the street is prone to flooding and we had to fix the sewer drain, and they're going to charge you for it. It's not free for them. It's not free for you. And that's how they charge you, through a special assessment. They just add it onto your property tax bill. All right. We're almost done with this unit. The last thing to this unit. What if you don't pay your property taxes? This is where you perk up a little bit and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, what's the result of not paying property taxes? You all need to hear this. First of all, when do property taxes become due for the current year? And when did they become delinquent? Of the next year. This is what happens if you become delinquent, is how we describe it. Look, they sell your tax bill. It's called a tax certificate auction. Officially, it's called a tax lien certificate auction, and I'll explain what that means. So it's not the sale. Look what it says. Tax certificate sale is not the sale of the property. Let me explain what it means. Just let me get your attention for a second so I can, because you hear advertisements about learn about tax lien certificates on the radio, and what is this all about? It's a big investment, okay? Not saying that it's going to require a lot of money. I'm saying a lot of people invest in it. I invest in this as well. It's one of the investments I make. So if somebody doesn't pay their property taxes within the year, they sell off your tax bill to bidders. Okay? I'll give you a hypothetical so you can better understand. Your tax bill that you didn't pay, you're late, $5,000. They don't wait. The county gets to work. They host an auction and it's online and bidders participate. I'm a bidder in one of these auctions. And the $5,000 that you owed that you didn't pay, that $5,000 tax bill does not change. So what are you bidding on? How do you win the bid? How do you become the highest bidder? It's not what you think. This is how it starts. This is the auctioneer or somebody from the county. They say, okay, property so-and-so, whatever address, parcel ID so-and-so, property tax bill is $5,000. Opening bid is 18%. Because it's a little bit confusing, right? Because the highest amount of interest you can make off of paying somebody's taxes that was late in Florida is 18%. But you're competing against other bidders. The next bidder across the room says, I'll be willing to take 15%. Next one says, I'll be willing to take 12%. Whoever is willing to earn the least amount of interest off of paying that person's tax bill wins. And then you pay the $5,000. So the $5,000 doesn't change. It's the amount of interest you can make off of paying their taxes that changes. It's so competitive in Florida, and it's online, the auction. So you might be bidding against somebody across the nation. And it's considered to be a more safe investment. Why? Because it's better than your money sitting in your bank account collecting dust. You can put it into something like this, a vehicle to earn interest, and potentially a high amount of interest by putting that money to work. So when I win, I pay the $5,000. I earn whatever interest was my winning bid for. Let's say it's 18%, the maximum, which I've won those as well. And I'll give you an example in just a moment. Now the person who still owes, the property owner, I won. I paid their taxes, so I have the right to put a lien against their property. The county conducts all of this when I win the bid for the taxes that are owed plus the interest that I can make. And the property owner has up to 2 years to redeem. That's how they describe paying it off. Redeem the tax that they owe plus the interest they owe me. What happens after 2 years if they still don't pay? No, you send it to a tax deed sale auction. That's where they actually auction off the deed for the property. Do you understand? So it starts off like this. I'll repeat it again. Let's say you don't pay your property taxes. Okay, I'll pay your property taxes. So whatever your taxes are, I pay it plus interest, right? You have the right to pay it off for up to 2 years. If after 2 years you still don't pay off what I paid for on your behalf, plus the interest you owe me, I have the right to send your property to auction, the deed for your property. It's called the tax deed sale. And now the actual ownership of your property is going to be auctioned off to the highest bidder, whatever it goes for in auction. And I participate in those auctions as well. Okay. Now, for instance, I paid off Gatorland's taxes. I don't know if you know who Gatorland is. Gatorland didn't pay property taxes on it was like 70 something acres of their property. And I paid it and I got 18% interest and they didn't pay for 2 years. Come on, Gatorland really didn't pay for they didn't pay for 2 years. So I send it to auction. So ownership of their 70 plus acres was going to get auctioned off. And as soon as they got the notification from the county that was going to be auctioned off, they paid. They paid everything they owe me, plus I got the most amount of interest. I got 18% on that. I'm surprised why nobody competed against me, but anyhow. So here's the thing. Tax deed sale. You see the tax deed process? The county covers this as well. Here's the thing. Depending on the type of property that you're looking for will dictate what auction you want to attend. If you're looking for good priced land, you look in tax deed sale, tax deed auction. That's where you find a good price. That's where you can find very cheap land. Okay. Other than that, if you're looking for a single family house, foreclosure, auction, and there's other auctions you can attend. I've attended every auction. HUD, foreclosure hosted by various counties, tax deed sales in various counties, Hudson and Marshall auction.com, Hubzoo, Home Path, Home Steps. These are all auction websites. Everyone.
Which one would you like? I mean, what's the common one? Which one would you run to first? Out of all of those?
Everyone. And the reason why is because the investment is made when you purchase. Now you got to get, you have to know your numbers to get it for the right deal. So I'll explore all auctions. If the numbers are right, I'm going to make money on it. Doesn't matter if it's this auction, that auction, whatever. Yes.
Like, do you teach what you do from an investment perspective?
I don't have any official class for it.
I mean, there's a market, there's a market.
There is a market for it. I usually, what I do with students that want to learn about this stuff, I invest with them. So I say, okay, you have money to invest. I'm going to use your money to buy this property, and I'm going to show you how it works along the way. And then we have an agreement that, yeah, basically I use your money to buy the property. I coordinate, show you how renovations are done, coordinate the crews and all that stuff. And at the end, we split the profits. Yeah, it is nice. Works out for everybody. All right. Federal income taxes, really, really, really great subject now because it's not boring. It's if you own property, how can you save money in income taxes? You got to know this. What can you claim as deductions every single year just because you own the property for your primary residence? Homestead? What can you write off every single year and not have to pay any income taxes to the IRS on? If you spend money on mortgage interest for primary and second homes, property taxes for primary and second homes up to $10,000. Does anybody have like a 401k, IRA, like these retirement plans that you contribute towards? If you try to take out money early from these retirement plans, do they penalize you? Yes, unless you can prove that the money you're taking out is a down payment for the purchase of your primary residence. And it's deferred, which means they want you to recontribute the same amount over a certain time period. But it's a great thing. When you sell this is huge. When you sell your primary residence, you make a profit. When you sell your primary residence and you make a profit, do I have to pay taxes on this profit? Profit is excluded up to how much? $250,000 for a single person. So if you make $250,000 profit when you sell your homestead, your primary residence, you don't have to pay any income taxes on it. Put it in your pocket, nothing to the IRS. And if you're a married couple, double it, $500,000. That's why people will house hack. They'll buy it as a primary residence, live in it for a certain time period, sell it, and then all the profits is tax-free. On page 420, additional benefits. Interest on home equity loans is tax deductible, and so is the cost of obtaining financing from the lender, like points, origination fees. You don't have to pay any income taxes on that money you spent to get the loan. What about, oh, by the way, I'm just going to mention this to you and you can read through it if you want, but you remember we just talked about $250,000 profit tax-free and then $500,000 if you're a married couple filing a joint return? Okay. What is that based off of? Is that based on what I paid for it and what I sold it for? Yes, but you also adjust based on how much money you put into the property. If you renovated and added all this money to it over the years, you don't have to pay any income taxes on that either. That's the adjusted basis they're talking about. Write it all off, guys. Yes. When you're a non-citizen, can you buy property in Florida? Yes, but IRS wants to make sure you pay your fair share of taxes. So FERPTA requires 15% of whatever you sell that property for. Foreign Investment in a Real Property Taxation Act. That's FERPTA. Any questions here? Okay. And our last thing, investment property. What kind of deductions can you claim for not your primary now, investments? You're going to love this. Basically everything. Basically everything is a deduction. What do I mean by everything? Operating expenses. Isn't that a lot right there? Isn't renovations operating expenses? Isn't property management operating expenses? Yeah. Write it all off. What if you're managing the property yourself? Anyhow. It would be wise, yeah, to set it up as an LLC, a separate entity for organization purposes. What about the money that you borrowed to purchase the investment? The interest you pay, the points, origination fees, all of that is non-taxable. And even what? What is depreciation? Loss in value. When the property depreciates, it's losing value. So wait a second, Michael, you're telling me the IRS allows you to write off depreciation every single year? How do you even figure that out? How do you figure out what that is annually? You're going to like seeing this. This is a really good thing. It's called the straight line method of depreciation. I'm going to show you how IRS determines, and your accountants, whoever prepares your taxes, determines how much you can write off every single year because your property has depreciated, right? Bear with me. You have to know this. It says the IRS has currently established that the useful asset life of a residential income producing property is 27.5 years or 39 years if it's residential income producing property. This is going to come into play in just a moment. Just highlight that for now. I'm just going to briefly mention this to you, then we're going to go through an example, okay? How does IRS determine what you can claim as depreciation and don't have to pay taxes on every single year for your investment property just because you own it? You take the total costs, whatever it costs you to acquire the property. You subtract the value of the land because you cannot calculate depreciation on land. I'll show you this in a second. And that'll give you a depreciable basis. Then you divide by either 27.5 years if it's residential income producing property, investment property, or 39 years if it's non-residential investment property. And that gives you the annual amount. So let me show you this. Go to the end of this unit. And the first question at the end of this unit, first question number 1. Let me show you this and we'll take a break. An investor purchased an apartment building in January for $975,000. The contract specifies that 90% of the purchase price is the building, 10% is the land. What are we going to focus on? Do we include land in our calculation? No. So remember that. The investor made a down payment of doesn't matter. There's just extra information we didn't need. What is the annual IRS depreciation allowance for this property round to the nearest dollar? Look how simple this is. You take the total cost to acquire the property, which is what? $975,000. That's your cost. And they said, how much percent is the building? They made it easy for us because we know depreciation is on the structure. It's not on the land. And they said the building, the structure is 90%. So all you had to do is multiply. Go ahead, multiply by 90%. Tell me what you get. I think it's 877,500. And that's your depreciable basis is how we describe it. So now that we have the value of just the structure, call it the depreciable basis, we either divide by 27.5 years if it's residential or 39 if it's non-residential. They said it's an apartment building. Is that residential or non-residential? How does IRS view what is residential, what is non-residential? It's really quite simple. Are people residing there or is it used for business purposes? That's how IRS identifies. Now in real life, it's going to be zoned commercial multifamily, but IRS says people are living there. They're using it for living purposes. So it's residential for that reason. And you would divide by 27.5 years if that's the case, and that's going to give you how much? 909, but you're rounding to the nearest dollar, so you can stop right there, and it's letter what? Letter B, right? Letter B. Did you do the math and see that? And that's your annual. I'm saying annual, which means what? Depreciation. That means every single year. I'm assuming if you have an apartment building, you're collecting what from tenants? Rent. Isn't that income? Doesn't IRS want to tax you on income? But you know, at least 32,000, roughly, it's 31,900. So 32,000 of that income is tax-free just because you own it. And IRS allows this every single year. Tax-free money. Isn't that beautiful? Now, you might have noticed something. The IRS says that you have a lower asset life for residential than you do for non-residential. Why is that? It's because residential, people are living in it 24/7, so it has greater wear and tear, and they say it's going to last a lower amount of time because it's going to start falling apart quicker because people are in there all the time. If it's a business, an office building, they're only using it between 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. right? So it has less less wear and tear, which means it's going to last longer. That's how they determine this. Any questions here? Okay. Now, one thing I want to mention, and I got them to add it to the textbook because I thought it was so important for you guys. And it wasn't included in the textbook. They thought it was irrelevant. I said, no, students need to know about this. That depreciation you claim every single year, $32,000 tax-free. You own the property, let's say 10 years. So that's like $320,000 you didn't have to pay any income taxes on. It's a deferred program, which means when you sell it, IRS wants you to add all of that depreciation back into the sale price and pay taxes on it. But there's a way to avoid it with what I told them to add to the textbook. It's called IRS Tax Code 1031, or most people describe it as a 1031 exchange. It's a like kind exchange. Have you ever heard of this? Let me explain. IRS says, if you don't touch any of that profit, you don't put a cent in your bank account when you sell it, and you roll all of your profits back into the next investment, we're not going to require you to pay us all of that taxes that you would have owed if you didn't do it otherwise, if you try to put it in your bank account. So this is what investors do they take advantage of the system, and it's there for a reason. You upgrade, you buy a condo, you sell it, you roll all of the depreciation or all your profits into the next investment through this tax code. You don't touch a cent. You have to register with the IRS. You have to send a letter to IRS saying you're doing this. You can't just, they're not going to charge me. No, you got to let IRS know that what you're doing. And then you use it to buy a single family house, sell that, make a profit, roll all of the profits into buying a duplex, sell it, roll all the profits into a quadruplex, buy an apartment building, and you just roll it. And you might be wondering, and this is what most investors think. They're like, okay, Michael, but then you're losing out on all that profit. You're not putting that in your bank account, and you're not having access to that money. You don't care about that. You care about cash flow. The next property that you roll it into should make you more money consistently every single month. That's what you live off of, not the profit that you make when you sell it. So don't touch it. Just upgrade. I got you guys. Let's take a break. I got you guys right on time. Be back at 8:35. Yes. Why don't they? Because you have so many other benefits. Tax exemption and all of that stuff, the homestead tax exemption and protection against forced sale due to personal debts, all of that. So they just don't, because they say you already have plenty of protections on top of it. Property taxes is deductible as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty, cameras on. Cameras on. Okay, Ariana, Lucas, cameras on, please. Cameras on. Thank you, Lucas. Awesome. All right. So unit 19 is the last one that we're going to cover for today. And unit 19 actually doesn't take me that long to cover. Let's go through it together. We see planning, zoning, environmental hazards associated with real estate. Just going to show you the most important parts. There is very little that you're going to be tested on for your state exam coming from this unit, but there are some components that we need to focus on. So let's go through it together. On the second page of this unit, page 430, we see something on line 10. It says the government, our government, has this philosophy of laissez-faire. Yeah. Thank you for your pronunciation. I appreciate it. Laissez-faire. It means let alone, let it be, right? It's French, right? It means let it go, let it go, right? So the government has this philosophy when regulating businesses. They let us be, they let us run our business the way we wish. Of course, they tax us, but it's not like other countries where they say, you got to do it this way. Otherwise, you can be put in jail. And it's not like CCP or anything like that. Anyhow, which is a good thing. It's a broad understanding of how our government works. Go to page 431, line 1. Local governments, municipalities, counties establish development goals called a comprehensive what? Or by creating a comprehensive plan. We'll come back to that. Go to page 432. Under authority. The City Planning Commission has 3 areas of responsibility. We actually saw this on the first day of class, if you can recall. Approval of a subdivision what? Plat map, site plan approval, and even the signage for the entrance of the subdivision. Local government has to have say over all of that. Interesting. Let's go to page 434. And we see zoning. Zoning ordinances are local laws that implement the comprehensive plan. And we know police power represents the broadest power of the government to limit the rights of property owners. We saw that in the previous unit. But what you might not know is there's different zoning classifications we should be aware of, like residential zoning. Residential zoning regulates what on line 12? Density, or the number of houses that could be built per acre. Very interesting. And sometimes you think, okay, well, man, this city is not doing a good job of it because the houses are damn near this close apart. You go to Laureate Park, Baldwin Park. Have you ever been to these places? And I mean, you can put your arm out the window and give your neighbor, a dap or hand them a cup of sugar. They're so close together. It's unfortunate, but money rules, right? And commercial zoning regulates intensity of use, meaning you can't just build whatever you like, wherever you like. And just because it's zoned commercial, that property doesn't mean you can put whatever business you wish. There's different classifications of commercial zoning, C1, C2, C3, C4, that says you can't put a gun store here. You can't construct a school here, a liquor store here, a church here. Everything has its own place. And this is by design, right? Because they want specific areas to cater to specific services and businesses that can do business there, right? Industrial, agricultural. Let's move on to building codes. What's the purpose of building codes? Protect the what? Yeah, health, safety, inferior construction practices. And we're talking about quality of workmanship, sanitary equipment, electrical wiring. All of these things are important to us to make sure there's not inferior construction going on that could hurt people, that could, fall on top of you. Let's go to page 435. But how does the local government enforce building codes? The process begins by issuing building what? After they review the right, Nisha? Architectural and engineering drawings. Architectural is the aesthetic, how it looks. Engineering is the structural, right? How the strength of it, fortitude of it. On the next page, if you want to get permission to do something with your property that it's limited from doing, you would request a variance. It's called a variance application. Are you familiar with this? Yeah, if somebody wants to put a pool in their backyard, but they're limited on size and they want, in order to get the size they desire, they have to construct the pool closer to the neighboring property. Well, there's something called setbacks. Have you ever heard of a setback? It says you can't build within a certain distance of neighboring properties or the main road. So in order to get permission to do something that you're limited from doing, you have to submit a variance application. But you have to prove some type of hardship exists. Oh, it's sad. I can't build closer to my neighbor's property because my pool won't be big enough. Good luck trying to prove that. Anyhow, let's move on to the next page, page 437. Legally non-conforming uses. This is interesting. Have you ever driven through downtown Winter Garden, downtown Windermere, downtown Orlando, downtown Kissimmee, and you see something that looks like a house, but it was turned into a law office or a medical practice? And you're like, what's going on here? It's because it used to be a house. People used to live in the city when the city was young, but the city grew and they expanded commercial zoning. And they said, we're not going to kick you out. You can continue living there as residential, but now this area is technically commercial and you have a choice. But if you turn it into commercial, that's the current zoning. You can't go back. Could you continue using it as residential? Yeah, the US Constitution protects us in regard to that. They can't kick you out. And you can sell it as residential as well, because that property is considered to be grandfathered in. It existed before zoning had changed. So that's why you might pull up to something that looks like a house, but it's a law office. But next door, somebody's actually driving into their, checking their mail and stuff like that. It's a very common thing. There you go. But the name, look, just so you remember, the name gives away what it's all about. You're legally not complying with what it's now supposed to be used for. Zoning is all about use. Let's continue on to flood zone is a big thing if you want to read through it. Now every property is in a flood zone. Just what flood zone classification are you in? A, B, C, D. Everyone has its own. Are you more prone to flooding than not? Everywhere in Florida is a flood zone, essentially. That's what we've learned in recent years, especially with all these wonderful hurricanes. So that's something that has to be disclosed to a prospective buyer now. Anyhow, you can go on FEMA has a website, and then you can go on FEMA's website and look at the map and then search a property, and you can see what flood zone classification it is. Or you can just pull it from public records. A lot of the time it's readily available to you. Now, environmental hazards associated with real estate, the first we see is asbestos. This is very common for houses to have an asbestos problem that were constructed prior to 19 what? What a coincidence. Same thing for lead-based paint. And if you don't know what asbestos is, it's a fibrous material. And it's flame retardant. That's how they describe it. Or flame resistant, meaning it doesn't burn. Isn't that it's a miracle thing, right? Like you have a product that doesn't catch on fire. So what they did was they started putting it in all kinds of building materials, because the dream was, we can build this house completely out of wood. And if we use this material with it, it's not going to burn down. So we could build a house that won't burn down. This is an amazing dream. But they found out that asbestos causes cancer. Yikes. It's inhaling. Microscopic asbestos fibers could result in respiratory diseases, including lung scarring, lung cancer, and so forth. So here's the thing. When you can get it tested for asbestos, they put it in adhesives for flooring. They put it in insulation. They put it in drop ceiling tiles, these tiles. They put it in everything, but could cause cancer. So you could test it, and if it does, then there's special companies that come out and remediate this. So what they'll do is they'll come out with hazmat suits. You know what a hazmat suit is? Basically, it's like the plastic spacesuit. And they come and remove it, and then they certify that it has no asbestos before it's sold. Any questions? Seems like you have a question. Yes. No, not in welding. Welding, like for the welding materials, when you melt metal, and they use lead a lot with welding and so forth, if you breathe in those fumes, that could cause lead poisoning. It could kill you as well. Anyhow, radon. You remember we talked about this already? Radon gas, lead-based paint. Any questions about this? What about mold? Not all mold is hazardous. Some mold will kill you if exposed in high concentration over a long time period. But when you enter a house that has a mold problem, you know, right? You can smell it's like a mildew, right? And in Florida, we're wet, right? We're humid. Mold activates almost immediately if there's a water problem. So you can't mess around with water problems for your investment properties in Florida. I'm telling you for personal advice as an investor. If there's a water leak, you got to hit that thing quick and take care of it. And then when you're doing inspections, when you're helping your buyer and you walk them through the property, look in the wet areas, use the eye test, right? Is there mold? Do you see moisture? If you see moisture, there's probably mold. These are things you can expect. Look at the HVAC system. Look at the handler, the closet with the AC equipment. Does it have, moldy spots on it? All of this stuff could affect the air quality. And if air quality is affected by mold, what happens? Person could get allergies. This person could get asthma. It could kill you in certain cases. Water supply that you have to disclose to a prospective buyer. Not all properties are city, county supplied with water and sewer. You might have a house that's on a septic system. You know a septic system? Are you familiar with this? Well and septic. So you're pulling water from the ground and you're processing it to drink to make it potable. And then also, how do I describe this lightly? The wastewater goes to a tank. The solids go to a tank on site. And you have chemicals to break it down. And then the liquids get distributed in your yard beneath the ground through something called a drain field. Okay. So that's a septic system. Septic systems are delicate. You have to know how to maintain them, meaning those flushable wipes are not so flushable. You understand what I'm saying? It could back up a system. And with septic, if it doesn't properly drain, it kicks in reverse and all of that poo water comes out of your drains in every single drain in your house. Yeah, my sister, she didn't know her house was, that she was renting was on a septic system. And she had these disposable wipes on the top of the toilet. I'm like, what are you doing with these? Are you flushing them down the toilet? First of all, you shouldn't flush them in general on any system, but let alone a septic system. And she's like, yeah, I'm flushing. What's the big deal? I said, you're on a septic. You can't do this. You're going to regret it. Do not do it. She didn't listen to me. And I got a random phone call like at midnight. The house is filled with, I was going to use a bad word, but there's poo everywhere. And she was crying and the stench and God, it came up through the tub drain, the sink drain, the toilet, everywhere. The house was flooded with poo water. And lastly, okay, if you're buying an older wood frame house, wood frame, not concrete, we're Florida, we're humid, what thrives in our environment, insects, right? All these little creatures. So the lender might require that you do a WDO inspection, which is wood destroying organism inspection. What destroys wood?
Termite.
God, so many things. There's about 6 to 8 different bugs that will destroy the wood in your home. There's 3 or 4 termites, classifications of termites that will destroy the wood in your home. Just that subterranean, you got beetles the wood boring beetles. You got ants, carpenter ants that will destroy and wood destroying fungus that exists and thrives in our environment. So when you see like the outside of a house and you see some of the wood exposed and it's rotting and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a termite problem. Don't automatically, it could be a plethora of things that are destroying that wood. It could just be it could be water intrusion and fungus building around it and just eating away at it. Wonderful, right? Any questions? We're done with this unit. I am tired. So I can't even imagine what you guys are feeling right now, trying to absorb all this information. But we got through several units. We have units 14, which is math, and unit 16, which is all about appraisal tomorrow. And then you'll be off. Sound good? Voila, yes. Okay. All right.
So today we did. No, I'm saying,
Oh, for the homework? Okay, for the homework, this is the homework I want you to do. Do 13 and 18. That's it. 13 and 18. Sound good? All right. Units 13 and 18, questions for homework tonight. Put you in your chairs, clean up your mess, drive safe. God bless. I will see you mañana. I don't know what it is, but teaching these evening classes, I get so ferociously hungry. at the end of class.
But in the house, I'm just like every
Yeah.
5 minutes you give a break. I'm just like eating the whole time.
But you're giving so much, like it makes sense that you're hungry.
Maybe it's monthly.
Appreciate you saying that.
What's it called?
Training myself to just get hungry is that so I can binge eat at night. And that's the worst thing you could do is like eat a lot at night, but I'm genuinely hungry and I want to like suppress it. So I don't know what I'm going to do. Just got a salad. So I can eat a salad. It's that like when you're so hungry, then you get the cravings. Then you're like, okay, salad's not going to satisfy a craving. I want a slice of pizza, you know? Yeah.
In an era where online education often falls short, there's an oasis transforming the digital learning landscape. Welcome to Cameron Academy. With our AI-powered platform, we're not just changing the game, we're rewriting the rules. At Cameron Academy, we're not just elevating education, we're lifting learners to new heights. Our comprehensive video lessons and AI tutors simplify complex real estate concepts. At Cameron Academy, we do more than prepare you for your exams. We equip you with the essential knowledge for a successful career in real estate. Break away from the traditional. Think computerized exams. A convenient study app at your fingertips and AI support, but wait, that's not all. Live chat support when you need it, AI-driven text-to-speech content, your own personal AI tutor, and instant online certifications. This isn't just education. This is the future. We're reimagining what it means to ascend to success in the real estate industry. Choose Cameron Academy, the oasis of innovative learning. Your journey to success starts here.